You two from out of town? Course you are. Nobody local's got shoes that clean. The old man slapped a bowl of tea down in front of me, 2 copper coins a bowl, which is criminally cheap, and he was the kind of small-town personality who talks to every customer whether they respond or not. You want advice, young man? In Wu City, you keep your head down. This isn't like those big southern cities. There's real cultivators here. Wu City is a nothing town in the north of Great Zhou. Population maybe 80,000. One river, one market, 4 family compounds, a wall that had been repaired more often than built. The strongest cultivator inside it was somewhere around Spirit Sea, and the whole city's monthly output of spirit stones would not have covered my master's beverage expenses for a week. We'd come in through the south gate on foot, dusty, after 6,000 miles, and I'd done the thing I always do in a new town, which is find a tea stall and sit down. 3 benches and an awning. Is that right? Oh, terrifying. He leaned in. The Lin family's got an elder at Profound Realm, and the Black Tiger Gang's boss, Boss Chen, Void Tempering Realm. Void Tempering. You know what that means? I have some idea. It means he could level this stall with a sneeze. He was delighted, genuinely delighted, the way people are about local weather. 50 years ago, I saw a void tempering cultivator fight in the market square, split a whole house, from roof to foundation. Wei Mei He, on the bench beside me, drinking her tea with both hands like a child because she is one, said nothing at all. So you two keep quiet and don't cause trouble, and you'll be fine. Where'd you say you're from? South. South where? Small sect, you wouldn't have heard of it. And that's when the screaming started at the other end of the street. 4 men in black were working their way down the market, and it was the oldest arrangement in the world. 3 big ones and 1 talker. They stopped at each stall, the talker said something, and money came out. The talker got to a fruit seller, a woman, maybe 50, with a cart of pears, and the money did not come out fast enough, so he kicked the cart over. 20 coppers a week, 20! You short me again and I'll break your husband's legs, then his arms, then we'll talk about your daughter. The old tea-man went pale and got very interested in his kettle. Black Tiger Gang. Don't look at them. Don't look, young man. And I was, I'll admit, about halfway through a decision, because I've learned something about being strong, which is that the strong are constantly presented with small things, and there's a temptation to save yourself for large ones. But Wei Mei He had already put down her tea. She got off the bench. She walked up the street. 13 years old, 4 foot something, in a plain traveling robe, with a rusted-looking sword on her back. The talker saw her coming and grinned at his friends. "Oh, little miss, this isn't a place for—" She drew. I want to describe what she did, because it was technically perfect, and it took about a quarter of a second. Wei Mei He's draw is a supreme-grade sword art executed by a golden core cultivator with a phoenix holy body and 11 weeks of extremely aggressive practice, and against a mortal thug, it was not a fight in any recognizable sense. The blood phoenix sword came out, went through his neck, and went back. His head was on the ground before his grin came off it. The other 3 ran, all the way down the street screaming, and I want to note that not one of them checked on their friend. The market went silent. 80 people watching. A 13-year-old girl standing over a body, sword already sheathed, absolutely composed. She walked back to the tea stall, sat down, picked up her bowl in both hands, and drank. The old tea man made a sound like a hinge. "Little miss, you killed a Black Tiger Gang enforcer?" "Yes. In the street." He was going to break a woman's arms and then discuss her daughter. She drank more tea. "Senior brother, this tea is very good." "It is." "You killed a Black Tiger Gang enforcer." The old man was on his feet now, hands in his hair. "Boss Chen will burn this entire market. He'll— Do you understand? They'll come here. They know where." And I put my bowl down. "How far is the Black Tiger Gang's headquarters?" 2 streets north, the big compound with the red gate." "Why? Why?" "Just checking." And I raised one finger and pointed north. I didn't stand up. I want to be honest that this was showing off, and that I was showing off for exactly one person, who was 13 and drinking tea beside me and pretending not to watch. 1 thread of sword chi came off my fingertip. It went over the roofs, not through them, over, and 2 streets north it opened into a phoenix about 60 meters across, made of pure yang fire and supreme-grade sword intent, and it came down. There was one sound, not an explosion, a single deep note, like a struck gong the size of a building, and the Black Tiger Gang's compound was a rectangle of glass in the ground. Not rubble. There was no rubble. There was a perfectly clean glazed footprint where a red-gated compound with 40 men and 1 void-tempering boss had been standing, and the buildings on all 4 sides of it were untouched, and a laundry line in the neighboring yard was still holding its laundry. Then it was very quiet in the market. The old tea-man was still standing with his hands in his hair, and his mouth was open, and he was looking north at a column of steam going up into the sky where the Black Tiger Gang used to be. I finished my tea. Then I put 2 copper coins on the bench because a man pays for his tea. "Thank you, it was excellent." And Wei Mei He got up and dusted off her robe, and we walked north to find the Lin family. And behind us, in a market square in Wu City, 80 people stood absolutely still around a headless corpse and a rectangle of glass, and one old man holding a bench with 2 copper coins on it. I learned later what happened to those coins. They did not go into his box. That evening, the old man announced that the 2 coins paid by the immortals at the South Stall were for sale. The bidding started at 3 taels. The Lin family's second elder bought them for 100 taels of silver, which in Wu City is a house, and had them mounted, 1 each, in 2 lacquered boxes, in the family's ancestral hall, with a plaque. The tea man retired. He also raised his prices to 3 copper coins and told the story to every single customer for the rest of his life, and by all accounts he told it better than the bard did. Here's what had happened to Lin Xiaohui 1 month before we walked into that town. The Lin family holds a talent assessment every year. Every child of the clan between 12 and 18 lines up in the front courtyard and punches a steely. The steely is a standard piece of equipment, a slab of gray stone with a measuring array in it that lights up in tiers and produces a number. It is not sophisticated. Roughly 90% of cultivation world drama runs on devices like this. And for 3 years running, Lin Xiaohui had broken the family record. I got the details from about 6 different people in that town, and they all agreed, and none of them agreed on how to feel about it. She was 15. She had a fire cloud body, a genuine precious grade physique, which in a nothing town in northern Great Zhou is like finding a diamond in a gravel pit. She'd been at Spirit C9 at 14. The Lin family had gone from the 4th family in Wu City to the 1st family in Wu City in 3 years, on the strength of exactly 1 child. And every elder in that clan had spent those 3 years telling anyone who would sit still that their Xiaohui would enter a great sect, and their Xiaohui would bring the clan up out of this dirt town, and their Xiaohui was practically already an immortal. Her father, Lin Tao, is the clan patriarch, and by every account he is a decent man who was in over his head, and he had done a thing that decent fathers do, which is arrange a very good marriage for his very promising daughter, Wu Kaihong. Capital family, royal body physique, personally favored by a princess of Great Zhou. On paper, a spectacular match. The engagement had been sealed for 2 years, and the whole city had been invited to talk about it. So on the day of the assessment, the front courtyard of the Lin compound had 300 people in it. Lin Xiaohui came out last because you saved the record for the end. She was, everyone says, in a very good mood. She'd broken through to Spirit C9 4 days earlier, and she was expecting to put a number on that steely that would have to be written down in 2 lines. She walked up. She saluted the elders. 300 people leaned in. She punched the steely, and the steely did nothing. Not a low number, not a disappointing tier, nothing. The array did not light. There was the sound of a girl's fist hitting a rock, and then there was silence, and then somebody in the crowd laughed because they assumed it was a joke. She punched it again. Nothing. She stood there with her hand on the stone, and this is the part that got me when I heard it. She apologized. To the elders. She said she must have done it wrong and asked if she could try once more. 3rd time, full strength. And the arm of a Spirit C9 cultivator with a precious grade physique hit that slab hard enough to crack the base of it, and the array read nothing, because there was nothing left in her to read. Her cultivation was gone. Not sealed, not suppressed, gone. And worse than gone, because over the following month, the family's physician confirmed that every scrap of true essence she managed to gather back was disappearing again within hours, faster each time, like water into sand. Now here's the part I knew and they didn't. Because on the road north, 4 days out, I'd finally gotten a straight answer out of my system about what my master had actually done. And the answer was a bead. Jiang Shu had put something inside that girl. A small bead sitting in her dantian, and that bead was drinking her cultivation as fast as she could produce it. She's had a hard month, my master had said. Actually, she's about to have a much harder one. Timing's bad, because I'm the one who did it to her. So I walked into Wu City knowing that the girl I'd come 6,000 miles to collect had been deliberately crippled by my own master for reasons my master had not shared, and that the crippling had landed 1 month before the appointment. And I'd like to tell you I marched in and fixed it on day 1. I didn't. I watched her for 6 days first, because the thing my master had said in a border town inn was still bothering me. Be nice to her, said by a woman who does not use words like nice, and because there is exactly 1 question worth asking about a person you're going to hand a Supreme's protection to, and you cannot ask it. You can only watch until it answers itself. 6 days in Wu City taught me what a month had done to Lin Xiaohui. Day 1, I found her at the family training ground at dawn, alone, punching a post. No essence, no technique that would work. Just a 15-year-old girl in a plain robe hitting a wooden post with her bare fists, over and over, badly, the way a mortal does, with her knuckles split and taped. I sat on a wall and watched for 2 hours. She did not stop. Day 2, I watched her walk through the compound and learned the shape of the thing. Because the Lin family had made a decision in that month, collectively, without anybody having to call a meeting, they'd decided she was cursed. That's the word. Not ill, not injured. Cursed. Because a girl with a precious physique does not simply lose her cultivation. So something must have come to her, and if something came to her, then it might come to the rest of them. And once you've had that thought about a member of your own family, it is amazing how quickly you can stop looking her in the face. Cousins who had followed her around for 3 years crossed courtyards to avoid her. An elder, a grown man in his 60s who had personally profited from her name for 3 years, told her in front of 6 people that she was bringing calamity onto the ancestral hall and should consider whether a filial daughter would remain under this roof. Her monthly allowance was cut. Her private cultivation room was reassigned, since it wasn't in use. Somebody had rubbed her name off the training ground record board, badly, so you could still see the shape of it. Day 3. 4 boys from a lesser branch cornered her behind the kitchens, Spirit Sea. All 4 of them, one of whom had been at True Essence a year earlier and had gotten to Spirit Sea by using a pill Lin Xiaohui had given him as a gift. Look at this, the genius. Say something, genius. Come on, hit me. Hit me like you hit the Steely. And Lin Xiaohui, who had no cultivation, who was going to lose, who could have walked away, put her hands up and hit him in the mouth. She lost, badly. 4 Spirit Sea cultivators against a mortal girl is not a fight, and they knocked her down and kicked her while she was down, and one of them stepped on her wrist. And when they let her get up, with her lip open and her eye closing, she spat blood on the ground and said, "Come back tomorrow. I'll be better tomorrow." They laughed all the way out of the yard, and she stood there holding her wrist and did not cry until they had been gone about a minute and a half, and then she cried for exactly as long as it took her to get her breathing under control and no longer. And then she went and washed her face and went back to the training post. I was sitting on the wall for that. Wei Mei He was sitting beside me, and I could feel her getting hot next to my shoulder. "Senior brother, let me kill them." "No." "Then let me break their arms." "No." "Senior brother." "Not yet." Day 4, they came back, because they'd been invited. And I want to be clear that she lost again, and I want to be equally clear about what happened during the fight, which is that at some point, one of those 4 boys, the one who'd been stepping on her wrist, got hit in the back of the head by something invisible and went face first into a rain barrel, and another one's knee gave out from a direction there was nothing standing in. I looked sideways. Wei Mei He was sitting on the wall beside me, with her hands folded in her lap, looking at the sky with the serene expression of a girl who has never done anything wrong in her life. "Little junior sister." "Are you flicking chi bolts at children?" "I don't know what you mean." "You are absolutely flicking chi bolts at children." "They fell over. Wu City has bad drainage," she sniffed. "Also, they're not children, they're 17, and if I were flicking chi bolts, they'd be dead, so clearly I am not." Day 5 is the one that decided it. There's a beggar at the west end of the Wu City market. Old man, no legs below the knee, sits on a mat with a chipped bowl. Lin Xiaohui's allowance had been cut to 20 coppers a month, which in that town buys 11 bowls of noodles, which is not enough food for a 15-year-old who spends every dawn punching a post. I watched her come out of a noodle shop with a bowl in each hand, and I watched her walk the length of that market to the west end and put one of them down on the beggar's mat. Then she sat on the curb next to him and ate hers, and they talked about something for a while, and he laughed at something she said, and she laughed too, with her eyes still half shut from Tuesday. I sat at the tea stall across the street with a bowl going cold in front of me. Look, I've done a fair amount of arithmetic in this story. I've been given things I didn't earn by a system that thinks I'm a hobby. I've killed a devil king. I've slapped a sect leader out of the sky. I have a master who kicked a supreme over the horizon because he was standing above her peak with his shoes on. And I'd been carrying a question for 5 days, which was, my master cripples a 15-year-old for a reason she won't share, and then tells me to be nice to her. So what exactly am I collecting? Then I watched a girl with a month of that behind her, with her family calling her cursed and her cousins crossing courtyards and her name scraped off a board, take half of the food she had, and walk it 400 meters to a man with no legs. Not once. The beggar told me later she'd been doing it since before the Steely. Ah, I thought, that's what master saw. Because here's the thing nobody in the Lin family had noticed, and it's the only thing about that whole month that actually mattered. A month of that will show you exactly what somebody is. Every single day, it offers them the very reasonable option of becoming smaller. Most people take it. Most people are entitled to take it. She hadn't taken it once. She was getting up at dawn to punch a post with no cultivation and no prospect and no reason. She was inviting 4 boys back to beat her again because tomorrow I'll be better. And she was still feeding a stranger out of a cut allowance, and nobody was watching. And nobody was going to reward her, and she was doing it anyway. I put my bowl down. Little junior sister. That one. Wei Mei He looked across the street at the girl on the curb with the noodle bowl and the black eye, and she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, in a completely different voice than she'd used all week, Are you going to be difficult about this? I am going to be extremely difficult about this, said Wei Mei He, but not about her. Day 6. The Wu family came to town. They arrived in a flying palanquin with 8 bearers and a gong. A gong. Someone rang a gong at the gate of the Lin compound in a town of 80,000 people to announce that a young master from the capital had condescended to visit. And I want you to understand that this was the single most expensive thing about the entire trip, because gongs are cheap and dignity is not. Wu Kaihong came out of the palanquin the way you'd step out onto a stage. 20, pretty, in white and gold, royal body physique, genuinely impressive, a rank above Lin Xiaohui's fire cloud body, the kind of talent the capital keeps and polishes. Profound realm cultivation at 20, and behind him came the crone. That's the only word for her. An old woman in palace gray with her hair pinned like a court official's, walking 3 steps behind him with her hands folded, and she was the actual weight in that courtyard. Void tempering realm. Somebody had sent a void tempering escort with him, which, in Wu City, is a small god. The Lin family assembled in the front hall inside 4 minutes, because the Lin family had been waiting a month for the capital to notice, and every elder in that clan walked in already knowing what was coming and had decided to be helpful about it. Lin Tao, the patriarch, took the seat at the head. Big man, gray at the temples, and I could see from the doorway that he hadn't slept properly in 30 days. They put Lin Xiaohui on a stool near the front, where everyone could see her. Black eye, split lip, taped knuckles, 15. And Wu Kaihong looked at his fiancée of 2 years for approximately 1.5 seconds before turning to address her father, which told me everything about how the next 10 minutes were going to go. Patriarch Lin, let's not waste each other's time. I've a long ride back, and the capital is expecting me at the palace tomorrow. Young Master Wu, please, sit, take tea. The engagement is annulled. He said it standing up, in a room with 60 people in it, in the tone of a man canceling a delivery. The hall did not gasp. That's what I noticed. Nobody in that room was surprised, which meant every one of them had already had the conversation privately, and Lin Tao was the last man in his own clan to find out what his clan had decided. Young Master, Lin Tao got halfway out of his chair. Young Master Wu, my daughter's condition is temporary. We have physicians. There is a divine physician in the capital. I've written. Patriarch, please. Wu Kaihong held up a hand and looked pained, which was the worst part. He'd rehearsed looking pained. I bear your family no ill will, truly, but I have a royal body. I am favored by Her Highness. In 10 years, I will be a supreme, and my sons will need a mother who can pass them something. A glance at the stool, finally. 2 years ago, your daughter was a genius. Today, she is a mortal who cannot hold true essence for 6 hours. What exactly am I supposed to do with that? She is 15, and I am not a charity. And then he made a gesture, and the crone stepped forward and set a jade bottle on the table. Yuan creating pills, 9 of them. A gift from the Wu family, as compensation for the trouble, and as a token that no ill feeling remains between our houses. Now I need to be honest about what that bottle was, because it's the hinge of the whole scene. 9 yuan creating pills in Wu City is a genuinely enormous amount of money. Every Spirit Sea cultivator in that clan would have shaved a decade off their progress with one. It was, in that town, roughly the value of the entire Lin compound. He bought a 15-year-old girl's public humiliation for 9 pills, and he priced it correctly. And he knew he'd priced it correctly, and that's why he set it on the table instead of handing it over. Because the second that bottle touched the wood, the Lin family's elders started talking. Young Master Wu is being extremely generous. More than generous. Patriarch, consider 9 yuan creating pills for the clan's younger generation. Patriarch, the Wu family's position is entirely reasonable. We must think of the family's future, not one child's feelings. Frankly, holding the young master to an engagement in these circumstances would be shameless of us. 60 relatives, in 1 minute, out loud, in front of her. Lin Tao put both hands flat on the table and shouted, and it was the shout of a man who knows he's already lost. She is my daughter, and she's cursed. That was the second elder. The one who bought the copper coins, incidentally, I found out later. Patriarch, say the word out loud for once. 3 years she carried this family, and we were glad of it. And now she can't hold chi in her body, and the ancestral hall's lamps went out twice last month. And you want us to turn down 9 pills to keep a bad luck child engaged to a royal body? And Lin Xiaohui stood up off the stool. Everyone stopped talking because nobody had assigned her a line. She walked out into the middle of the hall, 15, no cultivation, black eye, taped hands, and she looked at Wu Kaihong, and she did not look at her family at all, which I thought was a very deliberate choice. Young Master Wu, Miss Lin, you don't have to annul anything. Clear voice, steady, because I refuse to marry you. Somebody actually laughed. I refuse. Say it however you like when you get home. Say you released me out of mercy. Say my father begged you. I don't care. But I want the 60 people in this room to hear the order of events, so put it in your mouth correctly. I refused you. Wu Kaihong's pained expression finally slipped, and what was under it was petty, which is what's usually under it. Girl, you are a mortal in a border town. You do not refuse me. There is nothing you can refuse me with. Today? No, she nodded. You're right. Today I have nothing. Today you can put a bottle on a table and buy my family, and you did, and it was cheap. Then... So take your 9 pills and take your gong and go back to your princess, said Lin Xiaohui. And remember that I told you this to your face in front of witnesses. I will repay this 100-fold. Every one of you in this room. I don't know how yet, and I don't know when, and I understand that's funny right now. It's hilarious. Then laugh, she said. You'll remember it better. And the hall did laugh, most of it. Her own elders laughed. And I want to note that her father did not laugh, and neither did the crone, because the crone had been in service to the capital for 60 years and had heard a great many people make threats, and she had a professional's ear for which ones are hollow. Then Wu Kaihong decided he wanted the last word, which is a very human failing, and he said, "Guard, she's insulted the Wu family. Break one of her legs on the way out. The family will understand." And the crone said, "Yes, young master," and started walking. That's when I walked in. I didn't kick the door. There was no pressure, no announcement, no aura. I came through the doors of the Lin family's front hall in a plain white traveling robe, with dust on my shoes and a 13-year-old girl behind my left shoulder, and I said, "Don't do that." 60 heads turned. I'll be honest, I got exactly the reception I expected. In a room where the ranking system is who has the best physique, a man who doesn't leak aura reads as a nobody. Wu Kaihong looked me up and down. Who let this in? An elder came off the wall to handle it. The second elder, in fact. He was having a busy day, because handling an intruder in front of a capital young master was an opportunity. Profound realm. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Boy, this is a private clan matter. Whatever you're selling, take your hand off me. You can sell it outside." So I looked at him. That's all. I want to be precise, because people in that town spent years arguing about what I did, and the answer is nothing. I turned my head and I looked at a profound realm cultivator with the eyes of a supreme. He left through the pillar behind him, went off his feet backwards, took a load-bearing column of the Lin family's ancestral hall out at the middle, and stopped in the wall of the rear courtyard about 9 meters later and did not get up, though he did keep breathing, which was on purpose. Dust came down out of the roof beams. The room got extremely quiet. And I walked over to the stool nobody was sitting on anymore, and I stood next to Lin Xiaohui, who was staring up at me with her mouth slightly open and an expression I have thought about many times since. Not gratitude. Not yet. Just the total blankness of somebody who has stopped expecting anything and has to reboot. Then I looked at the hall. Which one of you said cursed? Nobody volunteered. Fine, then I'll answer the question none of you asked in 30 days. I put a hand on that girl's shoulder. She's not cursed. Her cultivation didn't leave her. It's being eaten by something that was put inside her, on purpose, by someone very strong, and it can be fixed, and I'm going to fix it. Lin Tao was on his feet. Young hero, who are you? And here's the part I'd been thinking about for 6 days, on the road and on the wall and in that tea stall, because it was the only line in this whole business that had to be right. She is the disciple of my Tian Xuan Peak, a beat, because she's my junior sister. And what I want you to understand is that I said it in the wrong order on purpose. Because disciple of a peak is a rank, and ranks are what that room understood. And junior sister is a family, and the room had just spent 10 minutes demonstrating what its own version of that word was worth. Lin Xiaohui made a small sound next to my elbow. Wu Kaihong, unfortunately for him, was from the capital. Tianxuan Peak. He was rattled, but he was recovering, and he did the thing that people in his position always do, which is reach for the org chart. I've never heard of it. What sect? What province? Do you have any idea who I? Duxian sect, southern region. The Duxian? He actually laughed. That's a small sect, 6,000 miles from anywhere. Fellow, you've made a serious mistake. My family is under the protection of Her Highness the 4th Princess of Great Zhou, and my escort here serves the household of... And the crone finally spoke, because she'd been doing arithmetic since the pillar, and had arrived at the only card she had. Young man, very carefully, very evenly. Consider well, I serve the household of Lady Yu Lan. She said the name the way you'd lay down a winning tile, and she waited. And what she was waiting for was the thing that name always did in Great Zhou, which is that people's faces changed. Because Yu Lan was ranked 7th on the Heaven's Pride Wind and Cloud list of the entire Eastern continent, and she was the strongest cultivator in the whole of Great Zhou, half-step supreme, in a country whose emperor bows to talent, innate allure, holy physique, ran a mansion in the capital containing, by public and enthusiastically maintained reputation, 3,000 male concubines, all of whom had come to her voluntarily, most of them from prominent families, several of them royalty. She was the single most feared and discussed person in that country. So the crone put the name down and waited for my face to change. And I said, Yu Lan, what is that? And I want to be completely honest here. It was not a bit. I have since been told it was the most devastating line I have ever delivered, and that the whole province repeated it for a year. In reality, I had heard the name for the first time 12 days earlier, off a bounty board flyer, in the phrase number 2, and it had not registered. The crone's face went white. You, is it a person? You said lady, so probably a person. I looked at Lin Xiaohui. Do you know? She's very famous, senior brother. You insolent. And the crone lost 60 years of court discipline in 1 second, which happens to people whose authority is entirely borrowed. Her void-tempering aura came up, and she came off the floor at me with her palm out and killing intent all over her face. I'll take your tongue back to the capital in a box. I flicked 2 fingers, and Wu City's small god came apart into a red mist about 1.5 meters from my hand, and the mist drifted out over the heads of 60 seated relatives and settled on the tea things. Nobody in that hall breathed. Wu Kaihong sat down, not into a chair, onto the floor, in white and gold, in the wet, and I looked down at him and did some arithmetic of my own, because he was 20, and he was stupid, and he was a product of a place where a bottle of pills settles a person, and I had a mountain to be back on and a homework assignment from my master, and no particular appetite, so I didn't kill him. I picked him up by the collar instead, walked back across the hall, and put him on his knees in front of Lin Xiaohui. Little junior sister. Me? You. His life's yours. Say the word and there's nothing left of him. And Lin Xiaohui stood there, 15, black eye, taped knuckles, 10 minutes after being sold for 9 pills in front of her entire family, and looked down at a royal body prodigy of the capital, who was crying and holding onto her sleeve and saying her name with the honorific attached for the first time in 2 years. She looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "Let him go." The hall made a noise. Little junior sister, if you're worried about the Wu family, don't. I'm not worried about the Wu family. She was still looking down at him. I told him I'd repay this 100-fold. If you kill him now, it's you repaying it, not me. And she stepped back out of his reach. I'll do it myself, later, when it counts. And I laughed out loud in that hall, which I don't think anybody knew how to interpret. Get out, I told him, and he got out, and he left the gong. Then I turned around to a room of 60 relatives who had spent a month deciding a girl was bad luck and about 90 seconds discovering otherwise. Lin Tao came forward and went straight down onto his knees, which I hated, and tried to speak and couldn't. Patriarch, stand up. Young hero, my daughter, is she? She's coming with me. And that put the hall right back into an uproar, because of course it did, because the same 60 people who had been calling her cursed at the start of the hour had watched a Supreme walk through their wall for her, and had immediately, sincerely, and without a flicker of embarrassment, reclassified her as the family's most valuable asset. Naturally, Xiao Hui is the pride of the Lin family. Our Xiao Hui always had the best heart of any child in this clan. Young hero, the Lin family fully supports. I ignored all of it and crouched down in front of her because she was 15 and I was about to hand her something and I wanted to be at her eye level when I did it. Lin Xiaohui. Senior. She stopped. Her hands were shaking and she was extremely annoyed about her hands shaking, which I recognized. Senior brother. Why? You don't know me. You watched me for 6 days from a wall. I know you did. I saw you. But you don't know me. I'm a mortal. I can't hold true essence for 6 hours. Everyone in this room has done the arithmetic on me, and they're all correct. And I said, then let me do some. What? You get up at dawn to punch a post you can't dent. You invited 4 boys back to beat you a second time because tomorrow you'd be better. Your allowance is 20 coppers and you carried half your dinner 400 meters to a man with no legs 6 days running, while an entire clan called you cursed. You watched that? I did the arithmetic, I said. A month of that will tell you exactly what a person is. It told me. She started to cry, which she was furious about. From today, you're the 3rd disciple of Tianshuan Peak. The thing in your body will be dealt with. It may take me some time to find the right fire, but it will be dealt with, and when it is, you'll get everything back and more, because the person who put it there does not do things by halves. And in the meantime, nobody touches you. Not this clan, not that capital, not a princess, not Yu Lan, whatever that is. I stood up and put my hand on her head, the way I do with Wei Mei He, which turned out to be the load-bearing gesture of my entire life. I'll take responsibility for you. And Lin Xiaohui, who had been the pride of a clan, and then a curse on a clan, and then a bottle of 9 pills on a table, stood in the middle of her family's wrecked ancestral hall and cried the way you cry when you finally get to put something down. And behind me, Wei Mei Hua said, very quietly, in a voice pitched for exactly 1 listener, Senior brother says that to everyone. I have said it to 2 people, and you were the second. I was the first. You were the second. Master was the first, and she stole my sword. Fine, then I'm the first real one. And the instant the words 3rd disciple of Tianshuan Peak were out of my mouth, my system woke up. Ding! New junior sister detected. Lin Xiaohui. Binding. Talent assessment. Prodigy tier. Now, I'd had this system for 3 months, and I'd never seen it put a tier on anybody. Wei Meihua came in with a phoenix holy body and a dead empress inside her, and the system had simply announced her name and started handing me realms. Prodigy tier came with a report. Host, be advised. Junior sister Lin Xiaohui is a carrier. Object identified within her dantian, the heavenly fire pearl. Classification, Immortal Treasure. I stood in a wrecked hall with my hand on a 15-year-old's head and had to keep my face completely still because I knew the grades. Supreme grade is what a sect fights a war over. My sword, her sword, the Haoguang mirror that my master put her fist through. Above Supreme, there's Saint grade, which the Holy Lands keep in shrines and take out twice a century. Immortal Treasure is not the next rung up. Immortal Treasure is a category that people on the Eastern continent discuss the way people back home discuss the ocean floor. It's real, it's down there. Nobody you have ever met has seen one. There was one inside a mortal girl in a border town in in the north of Great Zhou, and it had been eating her cultivation for a month, and everyone within 100 miles had concluded from this that she had bad luck. Note, the pearl is dormant. In its dormant state, it consumes the host's true essence to sustain itself. The host cannot cultivate while it feeds. Note, the pearl can be awakened. Requirement, exposure to a strange fire of sufficient rank. Note, upon awakening, the pearl will cease consumption and open to the host. So that was the shape of it. Not a curse, a seed with a stomach. And then the system said, the thing that has been sitting under this entire story ever since. Additional record found. Junior sister Lin Xiaohui shows a karmic connection to Peak Master Jiang Shu. Origin of connection, a previous life. Details unavailable at host's current permission level. I looked at the girl under my hand, who was 15 and crying, and had never left the province she was born in. And I thought about a barefoot woman on a rock 6,000 miles south, who had put an immortal treasure into a stranger's daughter 1 month before sending me to collect her, and who had answered, how do you know she's about to have a hard month with? Because I'm the one who did it to her, and had then gone to sleep. Master, what did you do? And who was she to you? I've asked, repeatedly, over years. The answer, every single time, delivered without looking up from the wine gourd, has been, The Lin family threw a banquet that night, because families like that respond to everything with a banquet. 12 courses, the good wine out of the cellar, which was not the Luo dynasty's good wine, but they were trying. Lin Tao at the head of the table with his daughter beside him for the first time in a month, and 60 relatives working extremely hard. I want to record what those elders did over the course of that dinner because it was genuinely a craft. Within 2 hours, the official history of the Lin family had been revised so that nobody had ever doubted Xiaohui, that the cursed business had been the invention of a few servants, that the second elder had been struck through a pillar because of a tragic misunderstanding, and that the clan had always known, deep in its bones, that its daughter was destined for a great sect. Lin Xiaohui listened to all of it, ate her food, and said, "Thank you, second uncle," in a voice with about 4 inches of ice under it, and I decided at that point that she was going to be fine. Wei Mei He spent the banquet on my left, monitoring. Senior brother, she's 15. I'm aware. I'm 13, also aware. So I'm the first junior sister, and she's the third disciple, and those are different things, and it is very important that everybody understands the difference. Little junior sister. Are you going to be like this the whole way home? Yes, said Wei Mei, and ate a dumpling. And that's when the Wang and Wei families kicked the front gate in. I'll explain the arithmetic because it's beautiful, and because it's the last piece of arithmetic in this part of the story. Wu City had 4 great families, Lin, Wang, Wei, and one that doesn't matter. For 3 years, the Lin family had been first, on the strength of one girl, and the Wang and Wei families had spent those 3 years eating it. A month ago, that girl's cultivation vanished. The Wang and Wei families started circling. And that afternoon, in the Lin family's front hall, in front of 60 witnesses, a young master from the capital with a void-tempering escort had come to publicly dump the Lin family's crippled daughter. And the news that got out of that compound and into the city was, verbatim, a capital family broke off the engagement. A pillar came down. The Wu young master left in tears. The Lin family's ancestral hall is wrecked. And the Wang and Wei families heard that and drew the obvious conclusion, which was that the Lin family had just been destroyed by the capital, and that its backer was gone, and that its treasury and its territory and its river frontage were sitting in a broken building with nobody on top of them. So they came together, every elder of both clans, 40-odd cultivators, 3 profound realm, and 1 void tempering between them, which in that town is an army, and they came at night, during the banquet, with torches, which I thought was a nice touch. The gate came off its hinges. 60 relatives screamed. The Wang patriarch came into the courtyard shouting a prepared speech about how the Lin family's tyranny over Wu City was ending tonight. I did not get up. I want to be clear that this is not laziness, or it is not only laziness. I was 3 cups into a banquet. I had a 15-year-old at the table who had spent 30 days being told she was the reason her family was in trouble, and I had a very specific point to make to her about what her situation was now. So I stayed sitting, and I put my cup down, and I raised 1 finger over my shoulder without turning around. 1 thread of sword chi. It went out over the roof of the banquet hall and opened into the phoenix, 60 meters of pure yang fire and supreme-grade sword intent, the same one that had taken the roof off the Luo dynasty's darkness and left a rectangle of glass where the Black Tiger Gang used to be. It came down in the front courtyard, 1 note, like a struck gong. And every cultivator of the Wang and Wei families who had walked through that gate stopped existing, from the patriarchs down, and the torches went out because there was nothing left to hold them, and the gateposts were still standing, and the courtyard's peach tree kept every one of its leaves. I picked my cup back up. Sorry, Patriarch Lin, you were saying? Lin Tao was on his feet with his sleeve in his soup. Nobody at that table moved for about 10 seconds. Then, Wei Mei He, without any change of expression, reached over and took the last dumpling off my plate, which she had been planning for some time. And that is how the Lin family became the first family of Wu City permanently, not by out-cultivating anyone, but because 2 of the other 3 great families walked into a banquet at the exact wrong moment and were deleted between courses by a man who did not stand up. The next morning, the city's remaining notables arrived with gifts in a line that went around the block. Lin Tao came to find me at dawn while I was sitting on the training ground wall watching his daughter punch a post, which she was still doing, at dawn, with no cultivation, on day one of being a Supreme's disciple. And I want that noted, because that's the whole reason any of this happened. He didn't kneel this time. I appreciated it. Young hero, may I ask something? Ask. The thing in my daughter, the thing that's eating her. He was looking at her, not at me. You said it can be fixed. You said you needed the right fire. That's right. Then I'll find it. Said by a Spirit Sea cultivator who had never left the province. I know what I am. I know I can't help you fight anyone. But there's a physician. The whole capital talks about her. Ren Shen. They call her the Divine Physician. They say she cured the third prince's mother when 9 imperial doctors had written her off. She's in the capital of Great Zhou right now. I've written 4 letters and had none answered. But if I go myself, if I kneel at her gate, and here's the thing, I already knew where I was going. I had a system telling me the pearl needed a strange fire of sufficient rank, and I had a monk named Fa Yuan somewhere on the road who I was fairly sure knew where to find one, and I did not need a doctor. But a father who has spent 30 days watching his clan call his daughter cursed, and who has just found out it was never her fault, needs somewhere to put his hands. Then we'll go to the capital, I said. All of us. You can knock on the Divine Physician's door yourself, which is how the 4 of us, me, 1 empress in a 13-year-old body, 1 prodigy with an immortal treasure in her stomach, and 1 very ordinary father, ended up on the road to the capital of Great Zhou, where I had exactly 1 enemy that I knew about, and, it turned out, 2 that I didn't. Now, while the 4 of us were on the road, something was happening 11 days south of us that I would not learn about until it hit me in the face, because one of the Wu household's runners had gotten out through the Lin compound's back gate that afternoon, and he rode those 11 days to the capital of Great Zhou and reported to a mansion with 3,000 men in it, and repeated my line exactly as it was said. Yulan, what is that? And the 7th-ranked prodigy of the eastern continent, the strongest cultivator in all of Great Zhou, the single most feared and discussed woman in that country, listened to a servant tell her that the new number 1 on the ranking did not recognize her name. They say she laughed for a while. Then they say she asked 1 question, and the question was not where is he, and it was not who protects him. The question was, is he handsome? I did not know any of this yet. I was on a cart with a wine gourd, teaching Lin Xiaohui how to breathe around the thing in her chest so it hurt less, while her father drove and Wei Meihe audited my seating arrangements. I thought I was going to the capital to knock on a doctor's door. I was going to the capital to meet the strongest woman in Great Zhou, and I'd already insulted her by accident, and she decided not to take it as an insult, which was infinitely worse. The capital of Great Zhou made Wu City look like a roadside shrine. We came in over the wall at dusk. I flew us the last stretch, 1 junior sister under each arm, a patriarch on a cloud of my true essence behind me, gripping his hat. And the first thing I noticed, you could have thrown a brick off any roof in that city and hit a golden core cultivator. The second brick would have hit a profound realm. That is not normal. That is not what a mortal dynasty's capital looks like. I found out why on the main avenue, when a bald head came through the crowd and bowed at me. Young Master Wei? Fa Yuan, the Vajra temple monk. I'd fought beside him in the Luo dynasty, back when a devil king was renting out the royal palace. A big, sincere slab of a man, whose Vajra body makes a very specific sound when he punches things, like a temple bell falling downstairs. Great Master, you're a long way from your temple. As are you. Young Master, have you also come for the violet skyfire lotus? The what? He looked at me the way you look at a man who has walked into an auction house by accident. And then he explained, at length, with his hands, because that's how Fa Yuan explains things. The violet skyfire lotus. 14th ranked strange fire on the continent's official list of strange fires. Yes, there's a list. Cultivators rank everything. I'm told there's a ranked list of lists. A fire that blooms out of the purple volcano near the capital once every 60 years. Refine it, and it tempers your body, upgrades your bones, feeds any fire attribute physique for a lifetime. A thing that Supremes will stand in a queue for. And it was due to bloom within days, which is why the capital was wall-to-wall experts. I kept my face polite and my thoughts to myself, and my thoughts were, a strange fire of sufficient rank. That was the exact phrase my system had used. The pearl in Lin Xiaohui's chest was a seed with a stomach, and the one thing that could wake it up, stop it eating her, open it to her, was a strange fire, and one of the 14 strongest fires in the world was about to surface a day's walk from where I was standing. On the exact week I happened to be in town. I want to flag this, because I've learned to flag it. My master sent me 6,000 miles to collect a girl she'd crippled herself, with no explanation and no deadline, and the road she pointed me down just happened to end at the foot of a volcano, on the 1 week in 60 years when the cure would be sitting in it. As she would say. I'm actually here to see a doctor, I told Fa Yuan, but now that you mention it, I might join the queue. The doctor was called Ren Shen, and I need to introduce him properly, because he's about to be important for exactly 11 minutes. The divine physician of the eastern continent, the man who cured the third prince's mother after 9 imperial doctors had written her off. Lin Tao had been writing him unanswered letters for a month, and the man himself was staying, everyone agreed, at the Bayou Tower, the most luxurious establishment in the capital. So that's where we went. The Bayou Tower is a building made entirely of white jade, every brick, every roof tile. It is the single most arrogant object I have ever seen, and my master owns a spear she keeps sealed inside a mountain. Inside, every guest was a cultivator, every waiter was Spirit C. There was not one ordinary person in the building, and Lin Xiaohui felt it the second we crossed the threshold. I watched her shoulders come up around her ears, because she was the only person in that tower with nothing in her dantian at all, and a month of Wu City had taught her exactly what rooms like that do to people like her. It took 9 seconds. A maid materialized in front of us with a professional smile and a bow. Honored guests, the Bayou Tower welcomes cultivators of Golden Core and above. Those below Golden Core are not permitted to enter. The smile tilted toward Lin Xiaohui. Young lady, you have crossed the line. Please leave. Lin Xiaohui turned to go. Instantly. That's the part that got me. No argument, no flush of shame even, just immediate compliance. Because a month of being the family curse teaches you your exits. I put my hand on her shoulder and stopped her. She's my junior sister. Make an exception. And who are you? Du Xian sect. Wei Jie. I have to describe what that name did because it was the first time I'd watched it work. The dining floor of the Bayou Tower went quiet in a wave, from the near tables to the far ones, the way a field of birds goes up. Chopsticks stopped. A man at the rail of the second floor leaned out so far he had to catch his hat. Because Wu City's little families don't read continental news. But nobody at the Bayou Tower was a little family, and 11 days earlier, the Heavens Pride Wind and Cloud ranking, the official list of the strongest young cultivators in the eastern continent, had been reissued with a new name at the top of it. A nobody, 20 years old, from a small southern sect no one had visited in a century. That's him? The new #1? He came for the Lotus. He must have come for the Lotus. The maid stood frozen between the rules of her tower and the name, doing arithmetic above her pay grade. And that's when a voice I already knew said, "The rules of the Bayou Tower haven't been broken in 100 years. Lin Xiaohui, why don't you get out?" Wu Kaihong, in purple now, capital purple. 11 days back home had reinflated him completely. The hair was oiled, the chin was back up, and he'd walked in with the bearing of a man on his own territory. Because he was. He looked at Lin Xiaohui the way you look at a stain that has followed you home. "Wei Jie, I know you're strong, but this is the Bayou Tower." He smiled and took out a jade slip. "Do you know who owns it? Lady Yu Lan. And do you know whose household serves her? You killed her servant in Wu City, and you've walked into the capital on your own feet. Convenient. Are you calling your Yu Lan? You?" He laughed. "You're not qualified for the lady to come personally," and he crushed the slip. What came was the Wu family's old ancestor. Top-tier battle king, a white-haired old man who arrived through the front doors with his aura already unfurled, pressing down on the room like weather, and I'll grant him this. In most of Great Zhou, that aura ends conversations. Half a step from supreme. In a dynasty with no supremes, a man like that fears exactly nothing. Who dares to bully my Wu family's unicorn? Wu Kaihong pointed at me the way children point. Old ancestor, this is the one. He insulted our family and Lady Yulan at the Lin family's hall. Execute him on the spot. Fa Yuan stepped in front of me. I want that on the record. A battle king monk stepped between me and a top-tier battle king on 11 days acquaintance, because that's what Fa Yuan is. Senior, young Master Wei is not a man who insults people idly. Surely we can discuss. Little monk, in this world, strength is the only reason. I'm stronger than you, so I can kill you. Step aside. I put my hand on Fa Yuan's shoulder and moved him gently out of the line. Thank you, great master. I'll take it from here. The old ancestor looked me up and down and found nothing. No aura, no pressure, a young man in a traveling robe, and he smiled the smile of a man who has been the strongest thing in every room for 60 years. Handsome boy. Pity about your manners. Kneel down. What did you say? Kneel down. And I let go. I hadn't leaked aura since the border. When a supreme unseals in a closed building, the building participates. The white jade rang. All of it. Every brick at once. One clean note, like the whole tower, was a struck bell. Wind and cloud started turning over the capital. Spiritual chi boiled off the streets. Somewhere outside, 10,000 cultivators looked up at the same time. The Wu family's old ancestor hit his knees so hard, the floor cracked. Not obedience, physics. A top-tier battle king's body simply declined to hold him upright inside a supreme's displeasure. And he knelt there with sweat coming off his forehead in a sheet. And I watched 60 years of being the strongest thing in the room leave his face all at once and take everything with it. The tower had gone silent again. Someone's cup was rolling along the floor of the second landing, and everyone let it. Now I understand the ranking, somebody whispered. A supreme. At 20. The Wu family is finished. Even Yu Lan can't save them. And Wu Kaihong, royal body, favorite of a princess, pride of the capital, sat down on the floor of the Bayou Tower in his capital purple, in a puddle of his own making, and made a sound I will not attempt to spell. Lin Xiaohui stood behind my shoulder with both hands over her mouth. She'd seen me erase a gang and delete 2 clans. But Wu City has no word for supreme. The strongest thing her province had ever produced was that crone. She'd been telling herself her senior brother was strong, the way a border town understands strong. Now the strongest establishment in the capital was ringing like a bell, and the word word going around the room was the word from the top of the continental ranking, and she was doing the arithmetic of what it meant to be that man's junior sister, and happiness, she told me much later, came at her so fast it felt like being run over. "My friend, please calm down." The voice arrived before the woman, sweet, low, amused, and then petals. Actual petals drifting down through the air of the dining floor, with no flowers anywhere in evidence. And through them, walking on air in about 4 ounces of silk, came the owner of the tower, Yu Lan. I'm going to describe her honestly, because pretending otherwise would be lying to you. She was stunning, and every movement was a performance tuned by an innate allure, holy physique, a sacred tier body that makes its owner's smallest gesture land like a hand on your collarbone. Half the men on that floor forgot to breathe out. The ones who remembered were monks. Wei Mei He took one look and her eyes went flat. "Innate allure," she said, in the tone people use for plague rat. "A harvesting physique. She strengthens herself by draining yang from men. Senior brother, that woman is a walking farm implement." And Yu Lan looked at me, and I watched her eyes light up, and I knew that light, because I'd seen it on an entire sex worth of female cultivators since spring. Pure yang holy body. The cauldron. To a woman with a harvesting physique, I am not a person. I am the single greatest agricultural windfall on the continent. Drain me, and she doesn't just make supreme, she has a road to saint. She bowed, beautifully, court perfect. "Young master, I am Yu Lan of Great Zhou. I greet you." Somewhere on the floor, Wu Kaihong's soul left his body a second time because he'd served in that mansion for years and she had never once bowed to anything. "Yu Lan," I said. "Right. Your people have offended me. What do you suggest we do about that?" She glanced at the kneeling old ancestor and the leaking prodigy and flicked her sleeve without looking at them. 2 cracks, a handprint bloomed on each of their faces. "Is the young master satisfied?" "I'm very dissatisfied." The petals faltered slightly. "A supreme was insulted," I said. "Those who insult a supreme die. That's not my rule. I just enforce it." And I put out one palm toward the Wu family's old ancestor and pressed down, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth condensed into a hand the size of a wagon and started closing. He blocked it with everything he had, and his everything creaked. Blood came out of him. "Yu Lan!" he screamed. "Yu Lan, save me!" And I watched her face while she did the arithmetic. The Wu family was hers. Years of investment. Her network in the capital's nobility. On the other side of the scale, a supreme, 20 years old, first on the ranking, with a body she wanted. She stood very still and let the scale tip. The old ancestor understood 1 second before the hand closed, and he spent his last second the way small men do. "Yu Lan, you shameless slut. You sleep with," the hand closed. And Yu Lan's smile stopped being a performance for exactly 1 heartbeat, and she turned and looked at Wu Kaihong, who had brokered her connections, won her favor, and just heard his patriarch's last words with 60 witnesses present. "The Wu family has offended this princess's honored guest," she said pleasantly. "Wu Kaihong, die." 1 finger. A red hole opened in the royal body's forehead, and the pride of the capital fell over backwards in his puddle. And that was the end of the man who had put a bottle of 9 pills on a table in Wu City and priced a 15-year-old girl. Lin Xiaohui watched him fall. I watched her watch. She didn't smile, and she didn't look away either, and her hand found the hem of my sleeve and held on, and I noted, privately, that the repayment she'd promised him had been taken out of her hands, and that she'd minded. She wanted it earned. Yu Lan turned back to me, smile restored, and bowed again. "I was not aware the young master had come to my city. Forgive the poor welcome. Tonight I am hosting a banquet at my residence. I would be honored." "No. I beg your pardon? No need. I have business in the capital. I refuse." I have since been told, by people who track these things, that this was the first time in Yu Lan's adult life that a man had refused her anything. She paused the way a machine pauses when it's handed a number outside its range. And then, this is the part I want you to study, her cheeks colored, her breath came up short, and her eyes went brighter. "So decisive," she murmured. "So domineering. Young master, one day you'll come to me yourself." And she left through her own petals, and every man on that floor watched her go with his heart in his mouth, and I stood there, having watched a woman receive a rejection as a courtship gift. "Senior brother," said Wei Mei He, with the deep calm of a kettle 2 degrees before the whistle. "That woman intends to have you. That woman is welcome to want things. When my strength recovers," she said, to nobody, at the ceiling, "I am not going to wipe out just her. I'm going to wipe out this entire dynasty on principle. You are 13 and you may not annex Great Zhou. I may not annex Great Zhou yet. We took 3 rooms in the Bayou Tower. The waiter had stopped mentioning rules. The waiter would have carried me up the stairs, and I settled in to wait for 2 things at once. The divine physician, who it turned out was almost never home, and the lotus. That evening, Fa Yuan introduced me to his senior brother, who deserves a paragraph. Fa Cheng, first prodigy of the Vajra temple. Young, shaven, wrapped in a Buddha aura so dense he read less like a monk and more like an arhat that had wandered down off a mural. Battle king already, one of the genuine top talents of the younger generation. He took one look at me and sighed the sigh of a man meeting his generation's curve breaker. Number 1 on the Heaven's Pride ranking. The reputation undersells it. We talked half the night. It had the makings of one of those wine-soaked meetings of heroes from the old stories, except that monks don't drink, so it was one hero drinking and two heroes having tea, which I maintain still counts. Meanwhile, one floor down, my second junior sister had a problem. Because her ruler had rung its little bell in her head that afternoon, the third comparison approaches. Subject: fist techniques. The comparison: her yin-yang heavenly Tao ruler, the artifact in her dantian that drags the two of us into a pocket world once a month and makes our phantoms fight. Winner rewarded, loser sentenced to serve. She'd lost twice. She had massaged me for 3 days and kissed my forehead for 3 nights, and both times she had walked into that ruler certain she'd win, because on paper she cannot lose. She's the reincarnated empress of another continent with an emperor-tier martial education, and I'm a man who got his cultivation from naps. So this time she ran an audit first. She tugged my sleeve. "Senior brother, do you know boxing?" "Boxing?" I thought about it honestly. No, never studied a fist art in my life. "If you want to learn, I'll ask Master to find you one when we get home." I watched relief bloom across her little face like sunrise, and I did not understand it, and I chose not to ask, because with Wei Mei He, the explanations are always worse. Fa Yuan, who was standing right there being helpful, it's a condition with him, brightened. "Oh, our temple has a Vajra-subduing demon fist, a foundational art. If the young lady wishes, I'd be glad to pass it on." He was being modest and strategic in the same breath. Gift a basic manual, befriend a supreme, cheap at the price. I let him do it. That night, in her room, Wei Mei He read the Vajra-subduing demon fist for a quarter of an hour and tossed it on the bed. "Garbage," said the former empress, "beneath me." And then she had her idea. I know exactly how the idea went, because I've reconstructed it from the crime scene. She couldn't just pull a supreme fist art out of nowhere. Senior brother would ask where a 13-year-old got one, and that question has no safe answer. But if you took the monk's basic manual as a base and quietly dissected several supreme-grade fist arts from her past life's collection and fused the pieces in, then when he asks, I'll say I worked it out myself. I'm a genius. By dawn, she had rebuilt a temple training manual into a supreme-grade fist art. Behind her practice punches, phantom arhats flickered in and out of the air. The whole tower's chi trembled faintly. She looked at her work, sniffed at the original manual, and said, and I quote the report, "Your little Vajra fist should be honored. I've fused it with supreme arts. That's a promotion." And upstairs, a bell went off in my sleep. Ding! Wei Mei He has mastered the Vajra-subduing demon fist, supreme grade. Feedback in progress. Host has acquired Vajra-subduing demon fist, grade, supreme, proficiency, perfection. I surfaced from the notification into the dark of my room and lay there staring at the ceiling with my hands folded on my chest. System, the monk's fist is a common art. How is her version supreme? And I arrived, unassisted, at the only explanation my worldview had room for. My junior sister is such a prodigy that she can take any garbage technique and comprehend it several grades upward. The turn wrought to treasure talent from the old legends. My 13-year-old junior sister. I lay in the dark and gave her a thumbs up through the floor. Both of them, honestly. One junior sister upgrading temple manuals by accident. The other one downstairs, and here the system's second bell of the night got less fun. Ding! Lin Xiaohui has cultivated all morning with no result. All true qi absorbed by the heavenly fire pearl. Mental state. Distress. Please comfort your junior sister. So the next morning, I went down and had the conversation properly. She was cross-legged on her bed, gray with fatigue, pretending she hadn't been up all night pouring water into a hole. When I came in, she jumped up and served me tea like a court page, and her hands told me everything her face was hiding. She thought she was about to be returned. A month of Wu City logic. The asset stopped producing. The family adjusts. Xiaohui, your eyes are red. You cultivated all night again. She froze, caught. You've been working hard. I've seen all of it. I put down the tea and held out a hand. Let me examine you. Trust me for a moment. I ran a thread of true essence through her meridians. Warm, slow, the whole circuit. I already knew I'd find nothing. An immortal treasure doesn't show itself to a poke of supreme chi, but the examination wasn't for me. There, I said. I know exactly what your problem is. Her head came up. Doctors had failed for a month. You found it? Really? Do you trust your senior brother? Yes, she said. No pause. Nothing else left to run on but that. Then rest for 2 days. No cultivating. Your problem is mine now. And Xiaohui, hear the whole sentence. What's happened to you is not a curse. When it turns, it's going to turn into the greatest fortune of your life. That's a promise on my name. She didn't believe the second half. You could see her file it under kind lies. But she slept that day, for the first time in a week, and that was the part I'd come for. And somewhere behind my eyes, the little meter that tracks how a person feels about me clicked upward 5 points, for a lie I hadn't told yet. Meanwhile, my afternoon delivered an invitation on gold-leafed paper. From the mansion of Yu Lan, flowing court script, sweet as syrup. The divine physician Ren Shen is a guest at my residence. If the young master wishes his junior sister treated, let him call on me, and the doctor at home. I want to appreciate the play. She'd found out inside a day why I was in the capital, located the one man I'd come to see, and moved him into her house. Come be my guest. Bring your problem. Owe me the solution. Textbook. There was a time that would have worked, because there was a time I needed the doctor. I lit one finger of pure yang fire and burned the invitation to ash in front of her runner. The runner stood there vibrating. You could see the calculations. He refused her. Fine. People refuse. No, no one refuses. And he burned it. He burned the lady's personal problem? No problem, the runner said, in the voice of a man updating his resume, and left at a pace. The report of the burning reached the mansion by evening. I have the scene from 3 separate sources because everything in that mansion leaks. Yulan on her couch among her beautiful men, hearing it, going dark with rage. No one has ever, pressure flooding the room, ornaments cracking. And then, mid-fury, her voice going soft. You really are irresistible. Her men exchanged the looks of employees whose workplace has no HR department. One second she's announcing a vendetta, the next she's flushed. And when she'd collected herself, she gave one order, and the order tells you everything about how this woman had won for 26 years. Fetch Ren Shen. If he won't come to me, I'll bring the doctor to him myself. They arrived at the Bayou Tower the next evening, while the 3 of us were finishing dinner. Petals first. Then Yulan, resentment worn as jewelry, and beside her, an elderly man in a blue robe with the silver-browed, crane-boned look of a sage in an ink painting. Ren Shen, the divine physician of the Eastern continent, in the flesh. Young master is heartless, Yulan announced to the room, wounded. I send an invitation, out of pure kindness, to unite him with the one doctor who can save his poor junior sister, and he burns it. Everyone, witness what I endure. Stop performing. I'm not interested. How cold. Then perhaps you're also not interested in Dr. Hua? The smile sharpened. You should know he can cure her. My junior sister's problem is already handled. And the old man stepped forward on cue, glanced once at Lin Xiaohui, and delivered his opening line like a man laying down a trump tile. Young lady, if I'm not mistaken, no matter how much you've cultivated lately, it has all vanished. Your true qi drains away as fast as you gather it, yes? Lin Xiaohui's chopsticks stopped, because that was exact. That was her whole month described to the decimal by a stranger on one glance, and I watched awe start up her face. The divine physician is real, before the old man rolled smoothly into the second half. You have been poisoned, child. A parasite was planted in you, the dispersing power goo. It devours a cultivator's power from within. And, untreated, he stroked his beard sadly, it eats the life root next. You would not see 20. The dining floor murmured. An ordinary family would already have been on its knees, purse open. Lin Xiaohui turned and looked at me. Senior brother, is that true? Nonsense, I said, and put my hand on her head. Word for word, what's in you is not a poison, and the day it turns over, you'll understand it was a blessing with bad timing. Trust me. Ha! The old man's benevolence developed an edge. The first time in my life I've heard a crippled dantian called a blessing. Young man, comfort the girl if you must, but she is dying. I am the divine physician of the Eastern continent. What are you? Her senior brother, said Lin Xiaohui. Both of them looked at her. You asked what he is. He's my senior brother. She said it to Ren Shen, politely, with her chin level. You're a famous doctor. To other people. To me, you're a stranger, and he's the one who saved me, several times. I don't need a remedy, thank you. The divine physician stared at a 15-year-old mortal declining the most sought-after medicine on the continent and shook his head slowly. Foolish, foolish. And then he made his mistake. At least allow an old man a proper examination. A pulse. Surely her senior brother permits a pulse. I looked at his eyes and found nothing in them but professional warmth, and I am ashamed to report that I said yes. He took her wrist in 2 fingers, sage gentle, held it, nodded along to the pulse, and my system screamed. Ding! Your junior sister Lin Xiaohui has been attacked. Dispersing power goo implanted. The needle had been in his fingertip. The goo had been in the needle. He'd carried the poison to the diagnosis, because a prophecy is much more convincing when you install the disease yourself. Say the words in front of 60 witnesses, plant the bug, and by month's end, the girl is visibly dying on schedule, and the only man who can save her lives in Yulan's guest wing, and the price of the cure is her senior brother, delivered. I moved. Left hand around the old man's wrist, bones together, held. Right palm on Lin Xiaohui's back, and a flood of pure yang true essence through her body. The goo was seconds old, shallow, and pure yang is the one thing that vermin cannot hide from. I felt it break loose and forced it out through the skin of her arm. It was a fat, iridescent thing like a ladybug, and it tried very hard to fly, and it did so inside a closed fist of pure yang fire, briefly. The dining floor had gone silent again. The Bayou Tower was developing a habit. Divine physician. I let the words out one at a time. Of the Eastern continent. Whose oath is that again? Whose benevolence? The sage face had gone to paper. Yulan, he said. Yulan, save. She flicked her sleeve and stepped sideways in one motion, voice ringing with civic outrage. Ren Shen, to think, a poisoner, wearing the name of a healer. How dare you commit such filth in my great Zhou? Young master, hand him to me. I'll see him punished severely. 60 years of court instinct in that pivot, genuinely fast. Blame docked, cargo jettisoned, and she'd have had him tortured somewhere private where he couldn't discuss who'd hired him. I raised one palm and put the divine physician of the eastern continent through the floor. There was no second act to it. A man who plants a death sentence in a 15-year-old to leverage her brother is not a chess piece I need on the board for later. The tower rang once. The robes settled empty. He had connections, Yulan said, into the quiet, genuinely thrown now. 10 great houses of this capital owed him. You killed him. He harmed my junior sister. He owed 10 deaths. He only had the one. I looked at her. Now. He was your guest, staying under your roof, produced by you, on cue. I don't much care whether you gave the order. Price is a price. Wait, yeah. The performance finally came all the way off, and underneath it she was half-step supreme and the strongest thing this dynasty had ever grown, and the petals in the air turned edge-on like little knives. I am Yulan of Great Zhou. Think carefully. You would make an enemy of me over a cultivationless piece of trash? Insulting her, I said, raises the price. I hit her with an open palm of pure yang fire. Credit where due, she took it. Yin Qi came up in a whirlpool between her hands and ground my fire out, and it cost her 10 steps of floor and a mouthful of blood, and no one below Supreme should have managed even that. The second palm I threw with several times the weight, a small sun crossing the dining floor, and she read it, understood the arithmetic instantly, and spent her escape talisman without one heartbeat of hesitation. Light swallowed her. The sun blew through the space where she'd been, and I pulled it apart before it could redecorate the tower. Gone. 8 streets away and running home. I didn't chase. The Lotus was hours out, and I wanted my full tank for the volcano, and I'd learned what I needed. Her ability to flee was first rate, and her ability to want me had survived 2 palm strikes, which frankly worried me more. I checked Lin Xiaohui over twice, clean, not a trace of residue, and made myself say it. That was my carelessness. I let him take your pulse. And this girl shook her head and said, "Senior brother, you burned it out of me before it even hurt," and looked at the scorch mark where the goo had been with an expression I recognized, because it was the expression from the noodle market, filed under How People Actually Are. And then she looked up at me, and the file got a second page, the one titled, Accept Him. And the meter went up another 5 points, which I want you to sit with. I let a poisoner touch her, and her opinion of me improved. Meanwhile, across the capital, a woman was pacing a mansion with a handprint of soot on her silk, cycling between "I'll destroy him" and "I must have him," at a frequency that was giving her staff whiplash. And then she stopped pacing, and smiled, and took out a jade slip that almost nobody alive knew she carried. Because Yulan had a hidden identity. Not the tower, not the concubines, not the throne's favor. Those were the public extravagances. Underneath them, she was the personal disciple of an old man on a crane. The old ancestor of the Piao Miao Holy Land, one of the 3 holy lands of the eastern continent, a saint, a being to whom supremes are weather. Master will handle it, she told her reflection, and her face did the flush thing again. He'll capture him for me, alive, and then, Wei Jie, we'll discuss your manners. At my pace. She crushed the slip. And I want you to sit with the shape of this, because I didn't know any of it yet, and it is my favorite piece of dramatic architecture in this entire story. To collect me, she called her master. Her master, the old ancestor of the Piao Miao Holy Land. The old man whose holy land my master had visited, alone, some weeks earlier, over a challenge letter. The old man whose sacred mirror has a fist-sized hole in it. The old man who knelt on his own mountain, in front of his entire sect, and called Jiangshu, a word I will treasure until I die, Grandma. That old man, summoned across the continent to deal with the problem of me. He was going to come too, fast as his crane could carry him. The Lotus surfaced the next morning. A column of purple fire went up over the horizon at dawn, and the heat of it crossed the whole capital like an opened oven, and every window in the city rattled with departing cultivators at once. Hundreds of streaks of light, all bending toward the same smoke. I left my junior sisters at the tower. That was not negotiable, and I made it not negotiable. A strange fire draws supremes, and I wanted my hands free. Wei Meihe accepted this with the grace of a cat accepting a bath, extracted 3 separate promises that I would come back undamaged, and posted herself at the window. The purple volcano was already crowned with people when I arrived. Down in the crater, in churning lava, the violet skyfire lotus swayed on its stem, purple flame in the shape of a flower, drinking the mountain, putting off spiritual heat you could feel in your teeth. Around the rim, a couple hundred cultivators were doing the math of desire against survival, and the math kept breaking down into brawls. And then the crowd's noise changed pitch, and a man in red armor came through it with fire trailing off him in the shape of a dragon. The 3rd prince of Great Zhou. Fire Dragon Royal Body, one of the strongest fire attribute royal physiques there is, the top prodigy of the dynasty, favorite son of the emperor, walking up to the crater with the easy confidence of a man collecting rent. Spirit bodies and precious physiques, he announced, to the entire mountain. Dare to contend with me? Several of them dared. There was a genuinely decent three-way scrum. Two treasure body fire cultivators, one of them with an ice fire sword that deserved a better owner, and the prince's fire dragon eventually chewed through both of them, and half the crowd used the distraction to lunge at the lotus, and the whole crater rim dissolved into exactly the kind of festival brawl you'd expect around the 14th strongest fire in the world. I walked through it. I want to be accurate about this, because the people who were there still describe it. I didn't leak aura, and I didn't hit anyone on the way in. I just walked toward the crater, and the lava pulled back from my feet on both sides, because lava is fire, and fire has an opinion about the pure yang holy body, and the fighting fell apart around me table by table as people recognized the man who'd spent the week deleting the Wu family and the continent's most famous doctor. The third prince did not read the room. Royalty rarely does. "If you want the strange fire," he roared, and threw a fist of dragon flame the size of a cart at my back. "You'll ask me first." I slapped it out of the air without turning around and kept walking. The second attempt was a fireball he'd clearly been saving for a special occasion, a compressed sun of royal body flame that would have put a top battle king in the ground. I caught it, closed my fingers, and let the ash run out between them. "Stop me again and I'll take your life. That's the whole warning." He clapped his hands instead. "4 heavenly kings!" 4 men in gold armor dropped out of the sky and boxed me in. Battle kings, all 4, the hand-picked pinnacle of Great Joe's military, selected from tens of thousands. Together, they were supposed to be a match for a supreme. I raised 2 fingers, drew 1 line of pure yang sword chi, and the phoenix went around me in a circle. 4 battle kings, 1 stroke. The gold armor ran off them as molten iron, and then there was no them, and the crater rim went very quiet. And I pointed the same 2 fingers at the third prince, and the sword light was most of the way to his head when a horsetail whisk came out of nowhere and batted it aside. A white-haired old man was standing next to the prince, unhurried, whisk over his arm, the smell of old power on him. A supreme, a real one, a veteran, of course. The 14th fire on the list is exactly the grade of treasure that pulls old monsters out of their mountains. "Young Master Wei," he said mildly, "your killing intent is excessive." I told him the price. He kept shopping. Heaven forgives sins of ignorance, not sins you signed for. Then, as the third prince's master, I'll take your measure on his behalf. And here I did something I want to explain honestly, because it looked like arrogance, and it was actually scheduling. The lotus was blooming. Every minute of delay was a minute some idiot could die grabbing it. So I drew the flawless sword and told the old man the terms. 3 moves. I'll beat you in 3. He laughed at me. Long, genuine laughter. Decades of it. In his arithmetic, he was 100 years my senior in the Supreme Realm, a hair from Grand Venerable, and I was a boy who'd broken through last month. "In all my years on the Eastern Continent," he said, "I have never seen a junior this conceited." The first sword took his whisk down to a burnt handle and moved him a dozen steps. That wiped the smile. He'd priced me as newly supreme and forgotten the price the body. Pure Yang holy body puts a furnace under every stroke, and the flawless sword is my master's own forging. The second sword he met properly, both hands weaving a yin-yang seal into a spinning taiji wheel, and the wheels shattered, and he went back 10 more steps and coughed blood. "The third sword," I said, and I'll confess, the technique portfolio, it was the same sword. All 3 were the same sword. The Phoenix sword art is genuinely the only sword art I know. He saw that and braced for the same weight and produced a compass from his robes and built the taiji wheel again, double layered. "Twice careless," he panted. "Not a third time. This time I hold." I said. "Look up." The phoenix over my head screamed, and every wisp of fire chi in that crater answered it, because we were standing in the birth chamber of a strange fire, a mountain saturated with flame essence, and fire is a branch of pure yang, and all of it, the whole volcano's worth, folded into my sword. The third sword broke the wheel, the compass, and every meridian in his body, in that order. He landed at the crater rim, blood steaming where it touched the rock, alive because I'd metered it and done fighting for a season. 3 moves means 3 moves, I said, not one more. Then I looked at the third prince, who had just watched the near-invincible pillar of his life get folded like laundry, and he did the smart thing 11 seconds too late, turned to run, and my sword chi was already out. Someone screamed, "Stop!" from the sky. The sword chi did not stop. The top prodigy of Great Joe, Fire Dragon Royal Body, favorite of the Emperor, came apart at the neckline, and his fireproof armor clattered on the rock. The scream had come from the man in the dragon robe now landing beside the body, Emperor Joe himself. He came down like a falling tower, grief first and rage right behind it, and he did the thing grieving fathers with armories do, pulled a golden sword whose aura hit the whole mountain. A supreme-grade weapon, the Zhou dynasty's ancestral blade, in the hands of a man who had never made supreme himself. "Pay back my son's life," his own half-cooked master wheezed. "Majesty, no!" from the rocks, because the old man could see the arithmetic clearly now, and it wasn't a sword problem. I let the Emperor close the whole distance and slapped him, open palm. He went across the crater rim, dragon robe over crown, ancestral sword skittering off among the rocks, and rolled to a stop in front of his own court, alive, because dead emperors are paperwork. "A ruler who can't tell friend from foe by this age," I said, "has failed at the entire profession." And the sky above the crater turned over, and profound yin chi came down on me like a cold ocean. She'd come back. Yulan descending in her petals with her eyes cold for once, all the performance stripped off, and I remember being almost pleased. Finally, honesty. Wei Jie, you think a supreme cultivation lets you do as you please in Great Zhou? Today you learn what it is to be outmatched. By you? Of course not. And the pride that came into her face was a different pride than the tower. Older, deeper, the one true thing about her. By my master. The mountain gasped before I did. Because whatever they said about Yulan, nobody had ever heard she had a master. A half-step supreme holy body prodigy takes lessons from whom, exactly? The answer arrived as weather. Clouds folded. Auspicious light broke through in shafts. Spiritual chi rushed inward from every direction at once, and where it touched the ground, golden lotuses opened out of bare volcanic rock, the phenomenon the scriptures call golden lotuses spring from the earth. And every cultivator on that mountain who had ever read a scripture went down on their knees at once, because that phenomenon means exactly one thing. A saint had come. Who dares bully my disciple? He descended out of the clouds in white robes, white hair, white brows, majesty arranged over him like vestments, the old ancestor of the Piao Miao Holy Land, one of the 3 saints of the eastern continent, a being to whom the entire assembled mountain was an anthill with opinions. I stood there doing honest math and not liking any of it. A saint, realms above me. If it came to it, and it looked very much like it was coming to it, my options were surrender or a memorable death. I drew a breath and set my sword. Du Xian sect, Wei Jie, I said. I'm told today is the day I duel a saint. Please advise. So you're the one who bullied, the old ancestor began, gaze descending toward me like a landslide. Boy, state your… And Yulan, glowing, stepped forward to do it for me. Master, this is Wei Jie of the Du Xian sect. He's run rampant through Great Zhou on his pure yang holy body. Capture him for me. I'll deal with him myself. I watched a saint freeze, mid-sentence, mid-gesture. The landslide stopped in the air. His face went through a sequence I have only otherwise seen on men remembering, too late, where they left something burning, and he turned, mechanically, joint by joint, to his disciple. You, what did you say his name was? Wei Jie? Master, what's wrong? What was wrong, I now know, was that the old man was looking at me and seeing a different face entirely. A white-haired woman with red eyes and a crimson spear, a hole the size of a fist through his sect's sacred artifact mirror, his own knees on his own mountain in front of his own sect, and a word he'd had to say out loud with the whole holy land listening. Because a few weeks earlier, my master had visited the Piao Miao Holy Land alone over a challenge letter someone had unwisely sent me. And the last thing she'd told him, the entire diplomatic communique, was, "Don't touch my disciple." And his own disciple had just served him her master's disciple, gift-wrapped, in public. "Young master, wait!" The whole mountain heard a saint's voice crack. I stood there with my sword half raised. "Young master? Young Master Wei, I have just reviewed the sequence of events, and I see the whole picture now, and the fault," he said, arriving at speed beside his stunned disciple. "The fault is entirely my disciple's." "Master," Yulan had gone gray. "Master, this person's crimes—" "Silence!" He rounded on her with a fury that was maybe 1/10 performance and 9/10 genuine terror looking for an exit. "Look at you, trading on a holy body to run wild. I'm ashamed to call you a disciple. Young Master Wei was teaching you, tempering your Tao heart, and instead of gratitude, you dared summon your master against him? You'll apologize to the young master this instant, and then you'll come home to the Holy Land and cultivate in seclusion. 10 years, not one step off the mountain." The crater rim watched this in devout silence, and I want to record the crowd's official reading because it's beautiful. What a saint! What insight! What impartiality! He descended in wrath, grasped the whole situation in a breath, and judged his own disciple. This is why saints are saints. A few sharper heads were doing different math. The wrath lasted until the name. The name is what turned him. Who in all the heavens is Li Xuan? And me? I stood there with my sword out, running through candidate explanations, and the leading theory assembled itself the way all my theories about her assemble. "Ah, Master's been here." "Since the fault is acknowledged," I said, experimentally, sheathing the sword, "the matter of my killing the third prince—" "He deserved it," said the saint instantly. Emperor Zhou, face down on the rocks over his son's body, made a sound and swallowed it whole. "And this violet skyfire lotus, if the young master wants it, I'll fetch it at once." And the old ancestor of the Piao Miao Holy Land, saint of the eastern continent, before whom supremes bow, hiked up his white robes and went down into an active volcano, plucked the 14th-ranked strange fire in creation out of the lava with his bare hand. Nobody contested this. Nobody on that mountain would have contested his laundry, climbed back out and presented it to me two-handed, at a slight bow, like a waiter with a plate. I looked at the purple lotus in his hands. The mountain looked at the purple lotus in his hands. Somewhere in the crowd, a man who had knelt to the golden lotuses 15 minutes earlier said, very quietly, "It looks like a lackey." "The saint's kindness," I said, taking my junior sister's cure, "is accepted. I have business elsewhere. Goodbye." And I flew home, and behind me, I had this from eyewitnesses, of whom there were 200. Yulan crept up to her master and asked, small-voiced, what she should do about me now. Do? The old man's whole majesty sagged. Forget the word. Forget the name. Did you not just watch me perform like somebody's grandson in front of half of Great Joe? He is not someone you touch. But, master, who is behind him? And the saint of the Piao Miao Holy Land looked at the horizon I'd left by and said, quietly, with feeling, an existence that could erase our Holy Land without setting down her wine. Back at the Bayou Tower, I was received as a casualty. Both junior sisters hit me at the door. Are you hurt? Was there fighting? We felt something enormous from the volcano, and then both of them started patting me down for injuries, which had become a standing procedure I'd stopped fighting. 4 small hands, checking my arms, my ribs, and then both hands landed on my chest at the same moment and touched each other. They froze. They looked at each other over my sternum. And something passed between a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, wordless, ancient, and profoundly unfriendly. The first spark of a cold war that, as far as I know, is still being fought to this day. I'm not missing any limbs, I said, removing one hand per junior sister. And I brought back the shopping. I opened my palm, and the violet skyfire lotus bloomed in it, purple fire in the shape of a flower, drinking the light of the room. Lin Xiaohui stopped breathing. That's, senior brother, that's the strange fire the whole capital came for. It's your medicine, Xiaohui. Do you trust me? Of course. Close your eyes. She closed them without a flicker, and I want to note what that trust cost her to build and what it was worth. Because what I did next, done to anyone else in that tower, would have been an execution. I put my palm against her collarbone and pressed the 14th ranked strange fire in creation directly into her chest. Wei Mei He screamed. Internally, she told me the whole transcript later. A natural-born strange fire is a thing void-tempering elders die trying to refine. Senior brother just pushed it into a girl with no cultivation. She's going to come apart. Why is she not coming apart? She was not coming apart because the moment the fire crossed her skin, something inside her inhaled. The whole lotus went down that pull like water down a drain. Violet flame poured through my fingers into a 15-year-old mortal, and her body drank the entire thing. A fire that would have detonated a primordial spirit cultivator, and the last of it vanished under her collarbone, and she sighed once and fainted into my arms. I checked her pulse. Strong, warm. The pearl had its meal. Wei Mei He stood there recalibrating her entire model of her junior sister. She held a strange fire. What is she? What's inside her? Is it bigger than what's inside me? And then she looked at Lin Xiaohui asleep in my arms, and I watched a completely different calculation take over her face. She grabbed her own head. Senior brother, I feel dizzy too. You feel dizzy. The strange fire's power, the ambient shockwave. I'm very affected. Her legs artistically buckled. Perhaps also carry. So I went up the stairs of the Bayou Tower with one junior sister asleep in each arm, and a merchant on the landing watched the whole procession and said distinctly to his wine, "Beast." What happened inside Lin Xiaohui that night, she told me afterwards, quietly, the way you tell someone a thing you're not sure you're allowed to have seen. She drifted in dark water. No body, no floor. And then a light. And the light became a sea of fire that went to every horizon, flames in every color she knew and colors she didn't. Red, blue, gold, black. Colors fire should not come in, all of it moving like a living court. And in the center of the sea sat a woman, cross-legged, upright, wrapped in 10,000 flames that touched her like courtiers touch a king, serving, not burning. The pressure coming off her froze the void itself. Lin Xiaohui, a mortal girl from a border town, looked at a being that made her mind tremble at a distance, and felt, under the terror, something that terrified her worse. Familiarity. The feeling of a mirror. That's me. That woman is me. And she was still arguing with herself about the absurdity of it when the woman in the sea of fire lifted her head and looked back. Their eyes met, and something went through her like all her lifetimes on one thread. The sea of fire shattered. 10,000 flames collapsed inward, folding down and down into a single bead. And the bead hung in front of her, and her hand rose to it on its own. And the moment she touched it, an inheritance poured into her skull. The heavenly fire pearl, forged from the essence of 10,000 fires, sovereign of all flame. And braided through it, a cultivation method with a name like a decree. The myriad flames heaven incinerating skill. Subdue fires, eat fires, grow by fires. A method whose ceiling is every flame in existence. She woke at dawn with her eyes full of understanding. Not a curse. It had never been a curse. It was the largest opportunity anyone in her bloodline had ever been handed, sitting in her chest with its mouth open, and the month of hell had just been the tuition. And then, she told me this part with her fists clenched on her knees. She understood the other thing. Senior brother knew. He'd said blessing in disguise on day one, in a rented room, when it sounded like a kind lie. Which meant he'd known there was a treasure inside her the whole time. An immortal treasure. An immortal girl he could have opened like a purse. And what he'd done with that knowledge was walk into a volcano, take a strange fire off a saint, carry it home, and press it into her chest. The entire prize, every spark of it, spent on waking up something that belonged to her. Ding! Lin Xiaohui's favorability, 98. 98. I checked it twice. Most biological parents don't score 98. She sat up that morning and ran the myriad flames method for the first time, and the lotus's leftover power, the part the pearl hadn't eaten, came off the pearl and into her meridians like a paid debt. Chi refining went by in a breath. True essence, spirit sea, the sea condensed, golden core. A month ago, the cursed girl of Wu City begging her own fists to dent a post. That morning, golden core at 15, with an immortal treasure purring in her chest and a method that eats fire, not restored. Upgraded, past everything she'd been before the Steely. Through the wall, I heard the exact moment she understood her own new arithmetic, because the whole floor's chi jumped. And in her room, alone, Lin Xiaohui clenched both fists and made a vow nobody asked her for and nobody heard, which is the kind that counts. Now I'm worthy to stand behind him. 10 years to Supreme. No, Supreme isn't enough. Strong enough to protect him. My own bell rang a minute later. Ding! Lin Xiaohui has entered Golden Core. Feedback in progress. Congratulations, host. Great venerable realm. And a second line behind it, for the myriad flames method she'd just mastered. Random reward, a physique divine ability. Pure yang piercing sun. Great venerable, second realm of supreme, a step that costs a normal supreme 50 years of cliff-sitting, billed to me mid-yawn. And the divine ability was the real prize. A top-grade physique art, purpose-built for the pure yang holy body. Take everything the body is, the whole furnace, and close it down to a single point, and let it go. Power to shatter 1,000 rivers and put a hole in the sun. I ran the forms once in my room, felt the entire universe's worth of heat gather behind one fingertip, and put it away carefully, the way you put away a loaded thing. Not bad, I told the ceiling. Now I have a trump card I didn't train for either. At lunch, the two junior sisters met on the landing, and Wei Mei He saw a golden core where the mortal had been, and there was a silence with a lot of moving parts in it. Golden core. Good afternoon, senior sister, said Lin Xiaohui, bowing beautifully, with the light of the reborn in her eyes. And I watched my two junior sisters smile at each other with flawless warmth, while, behind four eyes, two separate armament programs got their budgets approved. She has a treasure like mine. She's climbing. If she climbs past me, my seat next to senior brother. And I thought, honestly, warmly, like the fool I am, how nice. They've become such close sisters. We swung through Wu City on the way south so she could say goodbye. Lin Tao heard cured, then heard golden core, and had to sit down twice. Then he packed his daughter's bags like a man launching a ship. Dried fruit, pickled things, local sweets, more sweets, wrapped in cloth against homesickness, and, he told her seriously, useful as bribes. Sect politics run on snacks, said the man who'd never seen a sect, and he was more right than he knew. The clan turned out in the front courtyard to see her off, all 60 of them, in their good robes, in the same hall where they'd sold her for 9 pills 6 weeks earlier. The second elder had prepared a speech. They wanted to send their daughter to a great sect with the clan's blessing on her, and be, on the record, the family that had always believed. Lin Xiaohui let him get through about 4 words of it. Then she stepped forward and said, in front of the entire clan, in a voice with no heat in it at all, I said I'd repay this 100-fold. I meant it, and I've thought about how. Nobody breathed. Half of them, I'd bet, were pricing their own funerals. So here it is. When I'm strong, and I'm going to be very strong, nobody outside this city is going to touch the Lin family. Not the capital, not the sects. I'll see to it personally, and it will cost you nothing, and you will never have to ask. A pause exactly 1 beat too long. That's the 100-fold. You'll live your whole lives under the protection of the girl you called cursed, and every one of you will know it, every day, and I will never once mention it again. And she bowed to her father, only to her father, and walked out. 60 relatives stood in that courtyard with their good robes on and their blessing undelivered, and I watched the second elder work out that he had just been sentenced to gratitude for life, which is the only punishment in the world that gets heavier the longer you carry it. Little junior sister, I said at the gate, remind me never to owe you money. He'll be fine, said Lin Xiaohui, cheerfully, 15 years old. He's got a plaque with 2 copper coins on it to look at. Lin Tao bowed to me at that gate and did not cry until we were airborne. I checked. And then there were 3 of us on the wind, heading south. 1 supreme with a system, 1 empress in a 13-year-old body, 1 newly minted golden core with an immortal treasure, going home to a shabby peak with 2 wooden houses on it, to introduce the newest member of the family to the woman who'd crippled her on purpose. I still hadn't decided what I was going to do about that. We took the slow road home, and at an inn one evening, Wei Mei He shut her door, sat on her bed, took a deep breath, and whispered, begin. The third comparison. Her consciousness dropped into the ruler's pocket world, the enormous black and white measuring stick hanging in the void, her on the black end, my phantom on the white end. The rules chimed out. Fist techniques only. Cultivation equalized at golden core. No swords, no divine abilities. Prize on the table. A drop of heavenly spirit jade marrow. A saint-grade treasure, gentle enough to swallow at her realm, potent enough to shave years off everything. Her eyes lit up. With that, Battle King in 3 years, Supreme in 5. Then she frowned. Wait, why does that sound familiar? It sounded familiar because she thinks it before every comparison, and I know she thinks it, because she loses every comparison, and then tells me everything at machine gun speed while furious. But this time, the audit was airtight. Senior brother had confirmed, to her face, with sincere eyes, that he knew no boxing. She had built a supreme fist art in secret and mastered it to the peak. The founder versus a man who'd never thrown a punch. She bowed to my phantom, polite as an empress. "Senior brother, forgive the offense," and charged. Her first punch could have split a hill, and my phantom stepped back, off her line, and made a fist, and set its stance. And behind it, a Vajra Arhat unfolded into the void, solemn and gold and huge. Her own Arhat, her own art. The Vajra subduing demon fist she had personally rebuilt 3 nights earlier, thrown back at her with deeper fist intent than she had. The phantom's punch shook the whole pocket world and put her on her heels, and she blocked exactly 4 more before her stance cracked and the rain of her own technique swept her off the ruler. She surfaced on her bed with phantom bruises and a genuinely wounded heart. He lied to me. He said he didn't know boxing. Wait. And even mid-tantrum, the Empress brain caught the real anomaly. That was my fist, stroke for stroke. My version that has existed for 3 days that no living person has seen. She marched to my room and knocked like a bailiff. "Senior brother, do you know boxing?" I'd had the system's notification, so I'd had time to prepare an answer. And I want you to appreciate the craftsmanship of the honest lie I built. I do now. When you asked last time, I didn't. But these past days, I've studied the monk's manual, and I put my hands together, penitent. "Junior sister, I must apologize." "What for?" "I watched you practice in the courtyard. Your version looked different from the book. Better. So, senior brother, stole it. By eye." Silence. I watched her run the numbers, and the numbers were these. He watched me from a window with no access to my breathing patterns or my power circulation, and reverse engineered a fused supreme art to perfection in 3 days, and then beat the person who invented it with it. Her face did several things. The last one was resignation of a very specific flavor, and she told me much later what conclusion she reached that night, staring at me in my doorway with my sincere eyes and my apology. This isn't genius. This is a reincarnated immortal. Nothing else survives contact with the evidence. She wasn't entirely wrong that something was off. She was just aimed at the wrong miracle. "Fine," she said at last, hollow. "Then, senior brother, what would you like for breakfast?" "Is this revenge for the boxing?" "It's the penalty," she said with dignity, "and it's sincere. What do you want?" I looked into my future and chose the safest object in the culinary universe. Porridge? Just a simple porridge. Nothing, I reasoned, can go wrong with porridge. I want to walk you through what happened in that inn kitchen the next morning, as it was later reconstructed from witness testimony, because it explains the smell. Wei Mei paid off the cooks and took the room alone. Rice porridge, bubbling away, white and honest. She looked at it and found it monotonous, no nutrition. So, minced pork, in. Then her eye fell on the crab crate, where one crab, I've chosen to believe this, saw her looking and froze, pretending to be a stone. She grabbed it pinched her, she executed it with a fingertip of phoenix fire, which cooked it instantly inside its own shell, and into the pot it went, whole. Then whole fish, innards on grounds of nutrition, then a fistful of cabbage, unwashed, for balance, spring mud included. Then salt, 1 spoon, reflection. So many ingredients, one won't carry. Second spoon. Oh no, too much. It's fine. Add water. Water. Where did all the water go? More water. I woke upstairs to an aroma I can only describe as low tide, and came down to find my 13-year-old junior sister glowing beside a clay pot of something with the hydraulic properties of mortar, in which I could see crab legs, a fish regarding me with its whole face, and cabbage wearing the earth it was born in. Senior brother, I named it. Heaven and earth in one pot of porridge. Everything that flies, runs, and swims. Isn't it domineering? It's certainly in there, I said. All of it. I looked for allies. The inn staff, who had gathered to watch at a safe distance, met my inviting glance with the unified horror of men being offered a war. We've eaten. We've all eaten. We ate yesterday, so I ate the porridge. I started with the crab because a fresh crab is fireproof in every sense. Even that pot couldn't fully ruin it, and I was 2 legs in and beginning to hope when she thoughtfully ladled me a full bowl of the substrate. Don't just eat crabs, senior brother. The porridge is the main course. And then the gods sent me a second victim. Lin Xiaohui came down the stairs, saw the pot, executed a flawless about-face. Sorry, forgot to wash up. Third junior sister, I said warmly, catching her by the collar. It's your senior sister's kindness. Sit. Senior brother will serve you a big bowl. The look she gave me over that bowl. I just got my cultivation back. I don't want to die. Sits in my memory next to the saint handing me the lotus. We finished the pot together, in solidarity, in small, heroic mouthfuls, while the cook watched from the kitchen door like a man witnessing sacrilege in his own church. I'll make it again tomorrow, Wei Mei said, satisfied. Don't, we said, in accidental unison. And then Lin Xiaohui, 15 years old, 1 week in the family, already fluent, laid down cover fire. Senior sister, a delicacy like this should be rare. Eat it often, and we'd be spoiled for all other food. Exactly, I said. Ruined. Focus on cultivation. A martial artist's time is precious. She bought it. Mostly, she'd already gotten what she wanted anyway. That night, the ruler paid out the consolation prize, a supreme-grade drop of heavenly spirit jade marrow, and she swallowed it and went up like a firework. Golden Core 2, 3, 4, all the way to Golden Core 9 in one sitting. One step off the peak of the realm, with unrefined jade marrow power banked in her marrow for the climb ahead. And in my room, my ceiling and I received the bill of consequences. Ding! Wei Mei He has broken through to Golden Core 9th layer. Enormous progress. Random reward. Saint-grade physique, the supreme bone. I sat up. I knew this one from the novels back home. The supreme bone. The cheat bone of legend. Whoever carries it is guaranteed to reach supreme, and reaches it absurdly fast. And the bone comes with its own built-in divine ability. It ranks at the very top of all holy physiques. I sank my awareness into my chest, and there it was. A golden bone, glowing, carved edge to edge with runes like swimming tadpoles, and it was working, on its own. Drawing in the world's spiritual chi and refining it to true essence, around the clock, with no input from me. I lay back down slowly, with the smile of a man whose life philosophy has just been vindicated by heaven. An auto-cultivation bone. Passive income of the soul. The laziest organ in creation, issued to the laziest man on the continent, as a reward for surviving breakfast. Worth it, I told the ceiling. I'd eat the porridge again. I'd eat several. I did squint at the rune script for a while. There's a divine ability sealed in there, the bone's signature move, but the tadpoles swam away from my comprehension, and honestly, I'd just been issued pure yang piercing sun. A man doesn't need two trump cards in the same sleeve. I filed it under later and went to sleep. The bell rang once more before dawn. Ding! Lin Xiaohui has advanced to Golden Core 2nd layer. Feedback. Host advances to middle stage Great Venerable. 2 junior sisters, both climbing, both bich, and this is the beautiful part. Ki climbing harder because each had noticed the other climbing. On the road the next morning, I watched them clock each other's progress in one glance. Xiaohui reading Golden Core 9 overnight? Off her senior sister, Wei Mei He reading she was Golden Core 1 yesterday off her junior, both smiling beautifully, both silently upgrading their 5-year plans. The technical term for what was happening to my cultivation, I believe, is compound interest. The king of lazybones lay back on the cart and let his junior sisters carry him up the mountain of power in a sedan chair made of sibling rivalry. 100-some miles from home, the sky ahead of us broke out in Buddha light and devil chi. We crested a ridge and found a battle. A golden Vajra Dharma image the size of a hill trading blows with a black beast of condensed devilish chi. Small peaks around them bursting like boils. And I recognized the Vajra image's particular sincerity even at range. That's Fa Yuan. It was both of them, Fa Yuan and Fa Cheng, monks of my acquaintance, fists and scripture out, fighting a bald old man who was waving an enormous black banner that leaked screaming souls into the air. The story, as I got it afterwards. On their way home, the brothers heard of a temple where pilgrims kept vanishing. They investigated. The temple's kindly abbot turned out to be a demonic cultivator wearing a shaved head as a costume, luring in the faithful, caging them under the floor, torturing them to death on a schedule, and refining their ghosts into that banner. A 10,000-soul banner, fed on murdered pilgrims in a house of Buddha. The brothers, being the brothers, attacked it once, and it was going badly because the abbot was cheating in a way I genuinely have to respect as craft. His aura read Battle King. It had read Battle King his whole career. It was a lie he'd maintained for decades. He was supreme, and kept it hidden, specifically so that whatever hero came to slay him would send battle kings, and he could enjoy, his words, shouted mid-fight, the look on their faces. He got to enjoy 2 monks' faces going pale as his real aura came out, and his banner souls drove them to their knees. And then I walked up the road. What cultivation concealment, I said, honestly impressed. Even I almost missed it. The old man sized me up, decided a 3rd course had walked onto his table, swung the banner, and sent 10,000 murdered ghosts at me condensed into a black greatsword the size of a bridge. I made a fist. I'd like to pretend I chose the technique for tactical reasons, but the truth is that when a fake monk who kills pilgrims swings a soul banner at you, there is exactly one correct answer in my arsenal, and my junior sister built it. The Vajra subduing demon fist came up my spine with the whole storm of its fist intent. An arhat unfolded behind me with a face like a verdict, and I punched. The great sword of souls burst. The fist intent kept going, through the banner light, into the abbot. He had time for one sentence, the eternal sentence, how can you possibly be this strong? And then the man who'd spent a lifetime engineering the surprise on other people's dying faces died wearing it himself. The banner clattered down, broken in half. Souls poured out of it like smoke out of a bottle, and Fa Yuan knelt right there in the wreckage and began chanting them to rest, every one, which took hours, and he did not skip any. The brothers stared at me, then at my fist. Young Master Wei, Fa Yuan swallowed. That fist, that was our Vajra subduing demon fist? It was. Thank you for the manual. They looked at each other with an expression I'm now well acquainted with, the Wei Mei He expression, the one people wear when the arithmetic of me stops closing, because they knew that fist. It's their sex beginner art. They'd each spent a decade on it. Neither of their decades produced an R-hat with a face like that. Under the temple floor, Fa Cheng's punch opened a prison. Dozens of ordinary people, men, women, old, young, wounded, chained in the dark, some so broken they knelt to us, begging not to be tortured. We brought them up into the light, and they wept and knelt and promised to raise longevity tablets to 3 heroes. And Fa Cheng, sincere to the bone, redirected every scrap of credit to me, and I redirected it straight back. And somewhere in the middle of that exchange, the freed prisoners simply decided we were all immortals and worshipped indiscriminately, which is the correct compromise. Then everyone left, and I put one thread of pure yang fire into the temple and burned the whole rotten stage set to the ground. "Senior brother," said Wei Mei He, pointing at a clump of grass, "something's there." Something was. Rolling in the weeds, tail on fire, absolutely furious about it. A rabbit. A rabbit that had just run out of a building saturated in pure yang fire, a fire where a single stray spark kills tigers, with nothing worse than a burnt tail. "That," said Lin Xiaohui, "is not a normal rabbit." I caught it, put the fire out with my fingers, and looked it over. The tail fur was a total loss. Under that, internal injuries that had nothing to do with my fire. Something had beaten this rabbit badly before we ever arrived. A demon core, cracked, a body that read faintly like a battle king's, wrapped around a golden core's worth of surviving power. It had fainted in my hands. I tucked it into my robe. "We're keeping it?" Fa Yuan asked. "It's clean. No blood stink on it. No turbid qi. This was a beast that had cultivated on moonlight and good behavior. It can convalesce with us." Here is what I did not know and pieced together over the following days, mostly from the system's color commentary. The rabbit woke up almost immediately and decided to keep pretending to be unconscious, strategically, for days. Her reasoning, and I have this practically verbatim because when she finally told me the story, she was incapable of abbreviating it, went, "This human has captured me. The last kindly-looking party I trusted was an abbot who turned out to be a demonic cultivator, lured me into his temple, beat me nearly to death, and planned to eat me to advance his cultivation. I escaped his barrier at the cost of most of my power and hid in the cleverest place there is, which is inside his own temple." She awarded herself a mental thumbs up here, every time she told it. "Then fire fell from heaven and burned my tail off. I was the most beautiful rabbit in the clan. Male rabbits queued to see me. Some female rabbits also queued. Now I am the ugliest rabbit alive, and it is this human's fault, and he is healing my wounds, which is obviously sinister. He's purging the devil chi from my meridians, so I'll taste better roasted. That must be it. Humans are all like this." So she lay in my lap in a state of maximum tactical limpness while I fed true essence into her broken meridian several times a day, and the healing kept not turning into a barbecue, and her theory kept springing leaks. At some point, she cracked one eye open to check on her captor, found me dozing in the cart with my head tipped back, and the system reported this with what I can only call relish. And the little meter in my head, which apparently does not restrict itself to humans, ticked up 5 points for the Celestial Jade Rabbit. Celestial Jade Rabbit. I kept my breathing level and my eyes shut because that name is a headline. The Jade Rabbit clan is one of the great beast lineages of the entire continent, a power with 5 or 6 saints in residence, a house next to which our eastern continent holy lands are provincial gentry. And the Celestial Jade Rabbit is their once-a-generation miracle, a rabbit that, barring early death, is guaranteed to reach sainthood. One of those was faking a coma in my lap because she was worried I'd eat her. I didn't expose her. I just healed her more often, and this part was not strategy. I wanted on the record. I got into the habit of carrying her everywhere and petting her, because she had the exact fur density of the cat I never had in my last life, and a man deprived of soft animals for 20 years has a debt to collect. My junior sisters observed this development with parallel alarm, and each, separately, secretly, arrived at the same solution, which tells you everything about the household. If senior brother likes rabbits, I will buy him a rabbit, and every time he pets it, he'll think of me. The night before we reached the sect, at an inn 100 miles out, I opened the window, set the rabbit on the sill in the moonlight, and said, "Your injuries are healed. You're free to go whenever you like." Stillness of a very alert kind. "The mortal world's a filthy, turbulent place," I told her, and stroked her ears once. "Goodbye. Be more careful who you follow into temples." Then I went to bed and manufactured a long, credible sleeping breath, and after a while I heard 4 soft feet hit the sill, hesitate, the meter jumped 10, and then she was gone. I flashed a small victory sign under my blanket, and then lay there, honestly, a little deflated. I'd considered keeping her, a future saint, in the hand. But a caged rabbit isn't an ally. It's a grievance with fur, and forced affection curdles. And also, not incidentally, her clan could delete our whole Holy Land as an afterthought. Better a friend at large than a hostage at home. Still, I told the ceiling, I'll miss the fur. The next morning, Wei Mei He noticed my empty hands. "Senior brother, your rabbit!" Released. Maybe we'll meet again. And Lin Xiaohui nodded slowly, with shining eyes, at this display of noble non-attachment. Senior brother respects even a rabbit's wishes, and privately concluded, she confessed years later, that she personally would never be capable of it. If she truly liked someone, she'd keep them close by any means available. File that away, it becomes relevant. At lunch, both junior sisters vanished and returned with their hands behind their backs and identical innocence on their faces, and then simultaneously produced one white rabbit, one gray rabbit. They stared at each other's rabbits. The Cold War acquired a livestock division. I took a rabbit in each hand, deeply moved, genuinely moved. My junior sisters loved me and held them up. Thank you both. This one braised, this one roasted? Whatever senior brother prefers, said Wei Meihe instantly. I like spicy, said Lin Xiaohui. It was a joke. Why did you both? These are the first gifts my junior sisters ever gave me. They will die of old age. And in an alley behind us, a white shape that had been trailing our party at rooftop level for a day and a half watched me accept 2 replacement rabbits and put her fist through a wall. The wall fell down. I'm gone half a day, announced the future saint of the Jade Rabbit clan to a pile of rubble. And other rabbits have already moved in? Men are all like this. She stamped her foot, turned to leave forever, rotated back, and set off after us at a low sprint, ears flat, muttering the sentence that has since become something of a family motto. I won't lose to those other rabbits. We walked through the sect gate that afternoon to a hero's welcome. The story had beaten us home, the way stories do, gaining muscle on the road. Senior brother went to Great Joe, flattened their supremes, made a saint bow. Disciples came off every path to greet me, to ask if it was true, to inform me they'd missed me, and one to relay that the chief disciple of Divine Sword Peak wished to challenge me to a sword duel lasting all night, a phrasing the entire audience received with narrowed eyes and which I declined to examine. A female disciple spotted the 2 rabbits in my arms and squealed, "Senior brother, they're adorable!" And from a rooftop, unseen, a celestial jade rabbit's red eyes got redder. Adorable? Ignorant woman. Those 2 aren't 1/10,000th of me. And she ghosted over the wall of the Du Xian sect behind us, a beast the gate wards never even blinked at, moving on a movement art her clan doesn't teach outsiders, and took up residence, uninvited, unnoticed, on my mountain. Almost unnoticed. I caught one white flicker at the edge of my divine sense on the way up the peak, and smiled, and said nothing. Let a rabbit save face. Lin Xiaohui, meanwhile, was having her first look at her new home, and I watched it land in 2 stages. Stage 1, the sect proper. Pavilions on the cliffs, bridges over cloud, immortal chi drifting through the pines. Everything a border town girl ever imagined, confirmed at scale. Stage 2, our actual mountain. Tianshuan Peak, 2 wooden huts, a bald slope, 3 trees standing at strategic intervals like survivors of something, 1 thin stream. Even the birds had opted out. She stopped walking. I watched her try to reconcile Supreme, first of the Heaven's Pride ranking, with lives on a mountain that animals have rejected, and fail. It wasn't always like this, I said. It used to be green, spirit herbs everywhere. There was an incident. What incident? The incident was that our master dug up every spirit herb on the mountain and sold them for wine money. I did not say this to a girl about to meet her. Not important. I'll fix it up soon. And I led her up the bare path to the immortal cave to introduce my newest junior sister to the woman who had put the pearl in her chest, Xiao Hui walking behind me composing herself for some white-browed elder of terrible majesty, me walking in front deciding, one last time, to keep my master's secret and my mouth shut. Master, your disciple has brought junior sister Lin back. Junior sister Lin? Who's that? The voice came out of the cave with the specific gravity of a woman who has not moved in a week. Beside me, Lin Xiaohui's mental portrait of a stern, white-browed elder developed its first crack. Your newly accepted 3rd disciple. Oh. A yawn. Bring her in. Inside, a tall woman, white hair, red eyes, lying on an enormous bed reading a book, bare feet crossed at the ankle and swinging. She looked over at us the way you look at an interesting insect, then bounced off the bed with sudden enthusiasm and came at me barefoot across the floor. Ooh, big changes. She started patting me down with the clinical shamelessness of a horse trader. Breakthroughs this fast? Did you dual cultivate with someone? No, primordial yang's intact. And the chest is getting denser. There's a strange bone growing in here. Interesting. Master, I retrieved her wandering hand. Junior sister is standing right there. Junior sister was indeed standing right there, crimson, watching her mental portrait of master finish collapsing into rubble. I could read the exact caption on her face. My master is a pervert, possibly an omnivorous one. Oh, right. Jiang Shu turned to her 3rd disciple, walked over, hooked the girl's chin up with one finger, and studied her face at close range, turning it left and right. And she murmured, too quiet for Xiaohui to hear, exactly loud enough for me, still quite different from the previous life. Then, at normal volume, glancing at the girl's chest. The heavenly fire pearl's awake. So you had an eventful trip. A small, approving noise, whether at the pearl, the trip, or her own scheme ripening on schedule, she did not say. Good, out you go. I have important business with your senior brother. Lin Xiaohui looked at me. I nodded. Go find your senior sister, and she fled with her worldview under one arm. The important business was that the second the curtain fell, my master tried to strip me. Come, let master properly examine this new supreme bone. Master, I can undress myself. I did, to the waist, with the dignity of a man negotiating the terms of his own autopsy. She put a finger against my sternum, and her spiritual light sank in, and she read the bone like a menu. This supreme bone of yours is rather, and the divine ability in it, a creation-type soul transformation? Interesting. Then she pushed the finger through my chest. Through it. I watched my master's finger disappear into my sternum to the second knuckle, and my brain filed an emergency report that never arrived because there was no pain, just a numb electric fizz, and then a flood. Mysterious script pouring up the nerve of me into my mind, an entire unparalleled divine ability arriving as installed knowledge. One thought blooms, the supreme bone's sealed art, the one whose rune tadpoles had swum away from my comprehension, delivered by direct injection, because my master had glanced at a saint-grade mystery and decided the documentation was for other people. She pulled the finger out. The hole in my chest glowed, knitted, and was smooth skin before I finished exhaling. Divine abilities have attributes, like physiques, she said, wandering back to her bed. Yin, yang, 5 elements, light, curse. Yours carries a thread of the profound truth of life, high grade. Practice it, it'll matter later. She propped her chin on one hand and looked at me with naked entertainment. First, a pure yang holy body, now a supreme bone. How many more surprises is that mystery physique of yours going to bring me, I wonder? I stood there, half-dressed, recently perforated, being enjoyed like a serialized novel, and had my recurring thought, the one that keeps me sane on this mountain. Someday, woman. Someday I'll be the strong one, and on that day there will be a reckoning, and it will involve spanking. She tapped me on the forehead without looking up. Little Jiazi, I know exactly what you're thinking. Too green. I bowed to leave. And at the curtain, because I am constitutionally unable to bank a win, I turned back. Master, have you been to the Piao Miao Holy Land recently? Her page-turning hand stopped. Why would I go there? She said, with the studied blandness of a cat beside a broken vase. It's not fun. It's just that I ran into their old ancestor in Great Zhou. He wanted to kill me. The book came down. The temperature of the cave dropped 10 degrees. He dares? So he hasn't learned. Fine, I'll go tear the place down prop. And she stopped, because she is not slow, and looked at my face, which was wearing an expression of warm scientific interest, and understood that her disciple had just run an experiment on her and gotten a clean result. You baited your own master. Master, I'm leaving now. The suction caught me at the curtain. I have a great venerable's cultivation. It mattered not at all. I traveled backwards through the air of the immortal cave and was pinned face down on the bed, and my master, ancient and unfathomable terror of saints, rolled up one sleeve. Discipline, she announced, for the rebellious disciple. What followed I will summarize. I had a goal. The goal was, someday, to spank my master. I want the record to reflect the distance between a man's dreams and his circumstances. Master, I was wrong. Crack. Master, gentler. Crack. I came out of the immortal cave walking like a man who'd ridden a horse across a continent, and both junior sisters converged on me at the huts. Senior brother, you're limping. Are you injured? Twisted my ankle. A supreme. Of the first rank of the Heaven's Pride ranking. Twisted his ankle, on flat ground. Neither of them believed it for a quarter of a second. Neither of them said so. Both of them instead tried to seize the medical franchise. Which foot? Let me massage it. Third junior sister, you're NEW. I'll handle this. It's my duty as a junior sister. While I stood between them radiating gratitude, unable to explain that they were bidding on the wrong body part. The right one was not on the table, socially. It's nothing, really. Third junior sister, you don't have a cabin yet, and it's getting dark. Go cut some wood. Second sister, help her. I limped inside, lay face down on my bed, and turned my attention to my new divine ability, because I'd had a thought in the cave that deserved testing. One thought blooms. I turned it over in my mind, and a flower opened in my palm, a small lotus, swaying, breathing out threads of pure life essence, an unparalleled grade art. Heals all injuries, the manual said, nourishes all growing things. All injuries. So I lay there, and with one thought, grew a lotus directly out of my own backside. It drooped over me like a small nurse and dripped life essence, and the swelling of my master's discipline faded in minutes. I lay in the dark being healed by a flower planted in my own dignity, and I reflected that my master had almost certainly known I'd be able to do this, which explained the enthusiasm of the discipline, which meant, in the dialect of this mountain, that she'd been careful with me. That's how love works up here. I hold the thought close. Meanwhile, outside, an architectural fraud was in progress. Lin Xiaohui, a girl who would later demonstrate she can assemble furniture-grade joinery in the dark, could not build a cabin. Boards too short, boards too long, post holes too shallow, foundations that surrendered. Wei Mei He worked alongside her with mounting disbelief. How is someone this talented, this stupid? The wood is pre-cut. I don't understand. And then nightfall arrived with the cabin a heap, and Xiao Hui turned to me, wringing her hands, eyes enormous. Senior brother, I'm so clumsy. I've nowhere to sleep. Maybe, just for tonight, your room? And I watched Wei Mei He's face go through the whole arc of revelation in 1 second. The boards. The post holes. It was all an act. This little schemer engineered homelessness at me, and I confess the request caught me flat-footed, and I hesitated. And in my hesitation, my second junior sister moved like the empress she used to be. Junior sister, warmth itself. Stay with me. I don't mind senior brothers, men and women, said Wei Mei He serenely, 13 years old, hand closing on her junior sister's wrist like a manacle. Must keep distance. Senior brother is a man. Come, I'll show you my room. Second sister is right, I said, relieved to have policy handed to me. Stay with her tonight. And Lin Xiaohui said, all right, in the tones of a general watching a flanking maneuver collapse, and was marched off to quarters, and I watched them go and thought, I actually thought this, how lovely. They've grown so close, they're sharing rooms. The next morning, there was a complete cabin next to mine. Bedroom, sitting room, washstand, outhouse, open-air kitchen. Finished overnight, joinery like a court carpenter's. You built this overnight. I found my rhythm, said Lin Xiaohui, not meeting my eye, and handed me a bowl of egg noodles with scallions. They were fine. Ordinary, honest, fine noodles, and after the heaven and earth porridge, they went down like the cuisine of paradise, and I said so with my whole face, and Wei Mei watched my whole face say it and observed dangerously, if it's that good, I'll cook again tomorrow. No, 2 voices, and Lin Xiaohui, curious, delivered the question that unmasked everything. Senior sister, you never eat your own cooking. Why is that? Pause. I don't like eating what I make, said Wei Mei He, eyes sliding away. She knew. She had known the whole time. I stood there, re-deriving history in the light of this confession. The noodles, the porridge, the salt, and understood at last that the cooking was not a skill deficit, it was an instrument. She knew it was terrible, and she watched me eat every bite anyway, visibly suffering, voluntarily, because she'd made it. And that, the suffering, was the point. It was a love meter, and I kept pinning the needle. I chose not to litigate it. Some crimes are their own reward. Then I fixed the mountain. It started as shame management. Xiao Hui's face on arrival had been eloquent, and became the best week I'd had since transmigrating. I went down the mountain and bought saplings by the cartload. Willows, because Wei Mei He voted willow. Bamboo, because Xiao Hui said bamboo suits my noble character, a piece of flattery so shameless that her senior sister audibly ground her teeth and I audibly purred. Also, sugarcane. That vote was mine. A mountain should have snacks. Planting. I stood on the summit and opened one thought blooms over the whole peak at once. Lotuses bloomed in the empty air, life essence fell like weather, and every knee-high sapling on that mountain stood up and grew, a decade of growth in 3 breaths. Bare slope to green shade between one heartbeat and the next, willows combing the wind, bamboo groves knocking hollowly, the stream running audible again under leaves. An unparalleled divine ability, carrying a thread of the profound truth of life, wielded at great venerable power. Wei Mei He stood in the middle of the transformation, with her mouth open. The Empress brain paged through everything she'd ever read and arrived at unparalleled grade. This is unparalleled grade. Senior brother, how many more secrets? And in the immortal cave, a divine sense swept the mountain, and a woman lying on her bed felt something sour and unfamiliar climb up her chest as she watched her lazy disciple exert himself, gorgeously, mountain-wide, for 2 little girls. She examined the feeling. She identified the feeling. She rejected the identification. Jealous? I don't get jealous. Imagination. And her hand had, entirely of itself, begun rising to wave the whole green mountain flat again, which is the exact moment I walked in carrying a pot of orchids. I want credit for timing, but the truth is I'd simply saved the best plant for the person whose mountain it was. Master, your cave is perfect in every way, except it's a little monotonous. I picked these for you. Also, what would you like planted at your entrance? Your disciple takes requests. The rising hand came down. The face performed indifference over something that was not indifference. Humph, fancy nonsense. I don't need it. By now I'm fluent. No delivered at that pitch with that pause means keep talking. Bamboo then, but ordinary bamboo won't do for you. Purple bamboo. Purple for nobility. It'll suit your bearing exactly. And I watched, through the flattery, my master's mood physically re-inflate, her tone climbing several decibels through, do what you like, and I bowed out with my backside intact, and stood a moment outside the curtain, and awarded myself the thumbs up of a bomb disposal professional. She thought no one saw what happened next. The whole mountain saw. She sat up, looked at the orchids, smiled like a girl, and conjured a private rain cloud over the pot to water them with sweet rain, humming. Purple bamboo turned out to be a supply problem. Every market variety was that blackish, sugarcane purple, leaves plain green, not a plant you give a woman who kicks saints over horizons. I was on my 3rd town when a shopkeeper mentioned a real purple bamboo forest, 200 miles out, bamboo like carved amethyst, purple to the leaf tips. But nobody goes, he added, too late, in the manner of shopkeepers everywhere. There's a peerless demon in it, forbidden ground. Young man, I was just saying it, don't. I was already airborne. What I did not know, behind and below me, a white dot was crossing those same 200 miles on foot. at a dead sprint, swearing continuously. Because the celestial jade rabbit had appointed herself my observer, her doctrine, she later explained, being that you learn a man not from what he does in front of you, but from what he does when he thinks he's alone. And her surveillance had produced a dossier of mounting outrage. Subject never cultivates. Subject sleeps, drinks, plants trees. How is the subject supreme? Investigation must continue. And when the subject flew off toward a forest that smelled, at range, of blood-soaked murk, the investigator ran the whole distance on 4 legs and arrived winded and furious and hid in the bamboo, just in case her idiot benefactor needed backup against whatever had eaten every previous visitor. The forest was the real thing, groves of glassy amethyst, purple-leafed, faintly spiritual, gorgeous, and in the middle of it, a pavilion, and in the pavilion, a refined man in black robes who smiled at me like a host. A friend, what brings you to my purple bamboo grove? Cuttings, for my master's doorway. Take all you like, but you've come so far. Fate, surely. Sit, tea first. He poured, clear, fragrant, lovely. I looked at it and did not pick it up. I'd heard there was a great demon in this forest, ferocious, eats travelers. Ah, there was, he said warmly. I disposed of it. Drink, friend, drink. Happily, why is it poisoned? The refinement flickered. Absurd, you haven't even tasted. Then pour yourself a cup. Silence. And then the host's smile came off like a mask coming off, and under it was the thing that ate travelers. Boy, you walked into my forest. Today is your death day. I'll compress the fight because it wasn't the interesting part. His opening palm of demonic chi I blocked, and then my true essence stuttered, sluggish, half a beat late, and he laughed and delivered the villain monologue. The tea was theater. The real poison was in the incense burner. Airborne. 1 breath is enough. Even a supreme can't purge it. Die! And a white missile came out of the bamboo at neck height and kicked him across the pavilion. Both feet. Full extension. A rabbit dropkick delivered to the face of a demon lord by a furious ball of fur who had run 200 miles and was not going to watch her one useful human get eaten by tea. She landed, patted her legs smug as a duelist, and struck a pose. Great legwork, I said, with complete sincerity. Naturally. First word she ever spoke to me, voice like a silver bell, pitch like a girl of 11 claiming a prize. Then, remembering the situation, why are you standing there? You're poisoned. Run! I'll hold. The pavilion's owner got up. His robes split, and the refined man came apart into his real shape, a black bear demon the size of a barn, all tusk and small, furious eyes. And he made the mistake that was on the house tonight. He sneered at the rabbit. A beast that can't even take human form dares. Her eyes went red at the rims. Transformation, for the great beast lineages, is the graduation exam. The nobler the blood, the harder the change, and she'd been 1 step from it when a fake abbot broke her core and reset her clock by decades. It was the sore tooth of her entire existence, and the bear had bitten down on it in 1 sentence. She went at him alone, all Battle King body and Golden Core reserves, and landed 3 genuinely beautiful kicks before his paw caught her and swatted her spinning, and I caught her out of the air, tucked her under one arm, and stopped strolling. You're hurt? I'm fine. His strength is... Why are you still here? You're poisoned. About that, I raised my free hand, and pure yang fire came up my arm and lit the clearing gold. Pure yang subdues all evil. Ordinary poison boils out of me like frost off the stovetop, and whatever survives that meets the profound truth of life. The bear's whole body language changed mid-charge, the deep brain override of a beast realizing the small thing in front of it is a predator category it has no file for. A little poison, I said, is nothing to worry about, and used my new trump card for the first time. Pure yang piercing sun, the whole furnace, closed down to a point. A gold-red column of light took the black bear demon through the chest, kept going, hit a mountain on the horizon, and the mountain went away. The bear looked down at the daylight through his own sternum with an expression of profound administrative confusion, and died. The rabbit under my arm stared at the missing mountain, then at me, then at the mountain, and I felt her entire dossier on me get shredded and restarted from page 1. I dug purple bamboo till dusk, the best stalks, roots wrapped, and then, instead of flying off and letting her tail me home again with her pride intact, I crouched and held out my arms. I'm heading back. Coming with me? You're inviting me? To your home? Formally, might I know the young lady's name? She drew herself up to her full quarter meter. I'm not some casual rabbit. I don't just go when invited. However, a sniff, you did save me, and you're sincere, so I'll reluctantly, and she was in my arms before the sentence ended, burrowed in, ears down. Let's go back to Tian Shuan Peak. How do you know my peak is called Tian Shuan? Rigid silence in my arms, a rabbit reviewing 8 days of covert operations and finding the flaw. I laughed and let her keep her cover story. Name though, really. Lan Shui Ying, small voice. Nobody but her mother had ever used it, the clan says. Celestial Jade Rabbit, Young Miss, titles with braid on them. She fed the name out like contraband. Shuiying then. Whatever you like, said the rabbit, and pushed her head under my chin and rode the whole way home being petted, eyes shut, deeply compromised, occasionally remembering to mutter that she was only here for the investigation. The homecoming was mixed. I presented her. This is Miss Lan Shuiying, Celestial Jade Rabbit, our guest, and watched both junior sisters cycle through. He bought another. Wait, that's the same rabbit? It has a name? A girl's name? And arrive, in unison, at high alert. Because my junior sisters, unlike me, had read the folklore. Scholar and fox spirit, Whitesnake repays a debt. A grateful female beast one step from human form takes up residence with an unmarried man of pure yang. That story only ends one way, and they'd both read it. The moment my back was turned, they closed on her like customs officials. What happened in that interval, I reconstructed from evidence. When I next saw Shuiying, she was flat on the grass with her fur deranged. Wei Meihe was strolling past ostentatiously dropping a tuft of white fluff, and the air smelled faintly of the phrase braised or grilled. Shuiying? What happened? I fell, said the future saint of the Jade Rabbit clan, sideways, from the floor. Into a bush! I gathered my junior sisters and issued my first ever formal household decree. Shuiying may be a beast, but her conduct is clean, and there will be no bullying, and they chorused, "We understand, senior brother," with their heads bowed and their eyes screaming, "She's playing you," and détente was achieved on paper. The construction resolution came days later, after the girls discovered, long story, involving a cold night and my soft heart, that Shuiying had talked her way into sleeping in my room, because it's windy outside. The joint emergency session this triggered produced Wei Meihe's finest rhetorical hour. Senior brother. Beasts transform. When she takes human form, will she still be sleeping in your bed? Cultivate the habit now. Also, you have a pure yang holy body. You are catnip to every female entity on this continent. You cannot keep adopting them. I pictured the timeline where she was right, went cold, and authorized housing. The two of them built it in an hour, with suspicious enthusiasm. A tiny wooden house, snug, weatherproof, rabbit-scaled, with a food bowl placed in front of it. It was a doghouse. It was in every respect a doghouse, and they presented it to her with faces of pure hospitality. It's small, Miss Jade Rabbit, but it's enough for you. And Shuiying looked at the doghouse, and at the bowl, and at them, with the long-suffering expression of visiting royalty processing an insult too petty to dignify. Then she kicked the bowl off the mountain, picked the entire house up over her head, carried it across the yard, and set it down flush against the wall of my house, annexed to it like a gatehouse, and stood on the roof and raised her chin at them. Small has its advantages. Portable, rounding to the nearest sleeping arrangement, I live with him. Total victory. The junior sisters' faces as they recomputed the board state remain one of my treasured memories. The welcome banquet that evening, 12 dishes, my cooking, 2 jars of good wine, formally in Lin Xiaohui's honor at last, was eaten by 4 people and a rabbit in a state of armed cordiality, with my master participating in her traditional manner. She declined to attend and requisitioned a jar of wine through the curtain. She does welcome you, I told Xiaohui hastily. She's just stubborn, face-saving. Taking the wine is the welcome. It's a dialect. I know, senior brother, said Lin Xiaohui peacefully, and meant it. I understood later that my master's opinion had simply never entered her ledger. The sect that mattered to her had a population of 1. The medicine field was the last piece of the renovation, and it detonated my life. I went to the sect leader for seeds, a courtesy call that turned surreal in the doorway because the man greeted me, his grand disciple by seniority, with, "Junior nephew, come to give me pointers?" and would not be talked down from it. I'm supreme. He's half-step. In his cosmology, that settled the etiquette. I extracted ginseng, reishi, and cinnabar fruit seeds from him, along with 1 piece of intelligence I could have used a week earlier. Buy your own next time. Your master's rich now. She robbed the Piao Miao Holy Land of a mountain of spirit stones. My master. Rich. A woman I had personally watched attempt to shake down a peak lord for fruit. The information economy of my own household is a disgrace. I plowed a field, sowed it, and opened one-thought blooms over it. The field roared. Flower light everywhere, medicine fragrance in a wall, and every seedling surged to century-grade potency in minutes. A 100-year ginseng crop, on demand, forever. I stood there breathing it in and doing sect economics. An inexhaustible spirit medicine engine makes its owner more valuable to any power on this continent than a saint. Then I sighed the sigh of a man looking at a gold mine with no smelter. Pity I don't know alchemy. Remember that sentence. Because that same evening, Lin Xiaohui stalled on her own cultivation, which eats strange fires that don't grow on trees, went digging in the Heavenly Fire Pearl's inheritance for an accelerant, and found a second library inside it, a complete alchemy legacy. She lit up like her own furnace. Pills are the other great accelerant, and an alchemist never starves, and she studied all night, every rank of the art laid out before her. Apprentice, third-rate, second-rate, first-rate, great master. And, mostly legend, Alchemy Grandmaster, the rank that refines saint-grade pills, of whom the whole continent has a handful, each one an honored guest of powers. She set her sights modestly on apprentice and worked till dawn. Ding! Lin Xiaohui has studied all night and become an alchemy apprentice. Feedback in progress. Congratulations, host. Alchemy Grandmaster. I woke up mid-notification with my fingers twitching through seal patterns I'd never learned, and lay very still while several hundred pill formulas shelled themselves in my memory, and then got up, walked to the medicine field in the dawn light, looked at my 100-year herbs, and found that I now knew, the way you know your own name, 100 ways to refine every plant in it. The system had rounded apprentice up to the top of the profession. For me, the bootleg version. Overnight, third junior sister, I said to the sunrise, with feeling, I love you to death. She came out to the field an hour later to memorize herb properties and got a surprise mentor. She'd point, Senior brother, how would you refine this dragon root? And I'd hear my own mouth deliver the Grandmaster answer. Spirit pill applications, synergy with Coptis for wound medicine, and she'd check it silently against the Pearl's own records and find it exact, and look at me with eyes that said he even knows Dan Dao, while her favorability pinged like a fair meter. Wei Mei He, arriving to find her junior sister and her senior brother bonding over a shared technical vocabulary, wedged herself physically between us, listened to 20 minutes of pill theory with the expression of an empress at a tax seminar, understood nothing, and suffered. That was the tableau, me lecturing, one junior sister glowing, one junior sister sulking upright, when a sword light landed on our newly green mountain, and a woman in white stepped off it. Sword Ling Yao, chief disciple of Asking Sword Peak, second prodigy of the sect, the one who'd courted Wei Mei He with gifts at the tournament, back when nobody had heard of me. An orphan, as it happens, whose name always struck me as a strange coincidence. Ling Yao, same characters as the Holy Land, and I'd always filed it under coincidence, because she'd been in the sect since infancy. She looked around at the willows and the bamboo and the century-grade medicine field where a bald rock used to be, and said, I circled the sky twice looking for Tianquan Peak. Senior brother Wei, did you do all this? Guilty. And she looked at me with a new and specific brightness, and both my junior sisters read the brightness fluently, and later filed it, and she delivered her errand. The sect's prodigies were holding a martial Dao tea party at Asking Sword Peak, and the #1 young cultivator of the Eastern continent was cordially summoned. I went. The junior sisters stayed, declined without hesitation actually, and I overheard the doctrine behind it as I left, murmured like a creed over their cultivation mats. Favor is not enough, only strength keeps him. If I'm strong enough, then even if senior brother disagrees. I flew off, warmed to the core by their work ethic, having heard the sentence and missed its grammar entirely. Asking Sword Peak is shaped like its name, a blade of a mountain, edge on to the sky. At the summit, the sect's whole young elite rose and bowed as one. Greetings, senior brother Wei. The tea party itself was pleasant and slightly absurd. We sparred, I handed out pointers, a sentence or two from me unstuck bottlenecks people had been sitting on for years, which is what happens when a Supreme slums it at a youth mixer, and everyone glowed at me, and I drank good tea and let them. Then the gossip round, and the gossip of the season was, of course, the scandal of the Piao Miao Holy Land. Some peerless unknown had stormed their gate, and the old ancestor himself was rumored to have knelt, and the Holy Land stock across the whole eastern continent had gone through the floor. Zhou Lei relayed all this with relish. Piao Miao's people had swaggered insufferably for years, and the entire table speculated happily about who the mystery expert could be. I drank my tea and said nothing. I knew down to my toes who the mystery expert was. She was horizontal, 6 peaks away, and hadn't mentioned it because gloating would require sitting up. At least now they'll stop harassing Ling Yao Jr.'s sister over her name, Zhou Lei added. And that's how I learned the odd little fact I filed away and shouldn't have. Sword Ling Yao, orphan, raised in our sect from infancy, had spent years being hassled by the Holy Land's disciples over the coincidence of her name, and had even been invited by one of their elders to join. She'd refused flat. My name comes from my physique, she said calmly when the table looked at her. The ethereal Sword King body. It has nothing to do with any Holy Land. Coincidence, then. I remember deciding it was a coincidence. And then the eastern sky tore open. A pillar of light went up through the clouds, golden, dense, wrong-sized, and everyone at that tea party stood up at once with their cups in their hands, because the chi rolling off it could be felt at this range, and chi like that means one thing. Somewhere out east, a treasure the size of an event had just introduced itself. The news came back inside 2 days. A new secret realm had surfaced in the eastern continent. Secret realms, pocket worlds folded into the landscape, aren't rare as a category. There are a dozen mapped ones, all picked clean generations ago. What's rare is a new one, undeveloped, virgin. A new realm means unharvested treasures at every grade, and at the center of every realm, a core treasure, the kind of object that mints supremes. The whole continent lost its mind on schedule, and every sect started packing, which meant the Du Xian sect needed a delegate. And I have never in my life been less surprised than when the sect leader materialized on my green mountain, beaming. Nephew, it's all on you. Oh. In fact, nephew, I've been thinking, at every crucial moment, this old sect leader has been useless to the sect. Why don't I hand the position over to, no, I have a recurring nightmare, and it is administration. Sect leader, the seat is yours. There's a generation gap. It would be improper. Please never say this again. Then, and he produced, on the spot, with the creativity of a man determined to give me something, a title that had never existed in the sect's history. From today, you are the chief great master of the Du Xian sect. Rank equal to the sect leader. I just invented it. I accept it because refusing twice in one conversation strains an old man's heart, and because, let's be honest with each other, the position described my actual life with uncomfortable accuracy. All of the sect's deference, none of its paperwork. The secret realm trip I planned as a solo run, and framed to myself in terms I'd have found alarming from the outside. The realm would be crawling with supremes and worse, too dangerous for the girls, so I'd go alone, sweep it for spirit medicine, come home and refine it all into pills for my junior sisters. Earning resources for the children, I actually thought, with an actual warm feeling. Like an old father. The children saw me off at the huts with clenched fists and identical speeches. Resources don't matter. Come back safe. I'll train hard so next time I fight beside you. And I flew east, glowing with pride and missing, as usual, the fine print. What none of us knew, the realm we were all racing toward had an owner's mark on it already. Far to the east, there's a sunless valley the maps politely omit. The Valley of Lost Souls, home of the Soul Separation sect, one of the two great demonic schools. And in that valley, that week, an unprecedented guest list had assembled. The Soul Separation sect and its estranged sibling, the Soul Control sect, the Corpse Refining sect, the Joyous Union sect, every major power of the demonic path, all in one room, all giggling. Because the secret realm wasn't a windfall, it was bait. Their bait, a whole undeveloped realm, sacrificed like a banker's bonus, specifically to gather the righteous path's entire young generation in one enclosed space. Let the greedy things gorge themselves, said the laughter in the valley. And in a few decades, when their generation simply doesn't exist, the eastern continent belongs to the demonic path. I flew into it knowing none of this, whistling. The secret realm's threshold sat in a mountain range a day and a night out. I read the chi at the boundary, a lower grade realm, the bottom of the 5 ranks, which sounds dismissive until you know the scale. The one high grade realm ever found in the east is the private engine that makes the Dragon Holy Land a holy land. A lower grade virgin realm won't found a dynasty, but it'll mint supremes. I stepped through the boundary film, a sensation like walking through soap bubble, and came out in another world. Primeval forest, trees that 4 men couldn't link arms around, and those were the saplings. And on the horizon, one ancient tree that went up through the cloud layer, bigger than the whole of Tianquan Peak. First time in a secret realm. I stood there like a tourist, and I'm not ashamed of it. Then the looting started, and the looting was ridiculous. 10 steps in, a reishi mushroom the size of a wash basin. In the mortal world, a national treasure. 10 miles, ginseng and lingji at grades I'd only seen in my own accelerated field. The place was a treasure room with weather. And on a cliff face, the first real prize, a green vine, 3 feet of concentrated life essence squeezing its whole self into one ripening green fruit. While beneath it, a giant python and a hawk fought each other for the claim. And around them, a growing mob of human cultivators fought the python, the hawk, and each other, because someone had shouted the fruit's name, the green spirit fruit. A supreme-grade elixir fruit. 1 fruit makes 1 supreme. The brawl had been running since morning and was scheduled to run till someone was the last thing standing. I walked through the middle of it at great venerable speed, which none of them could see, picked the fruit, and left. The sound behind me, when the mob discovered the prize had exited the tournament, was one of the finer pieces of music I've commissioned. One person there could see me. A sword light cut across my path, and a young man in white stepped out of it with his jaw set. Leave the green spirit fruit. I recognized him with genuine interest. Ling Yun, saint of the Piao Miao Holy Land, 3rd on the Heaven's Pride ranking. 1 small step from supreme, a step the fruit in my hand would carry him across. He'd once mailed me a challenge letter back before events. He was, credit given, entirely ready to fight a supreme for that fruit. I won't be leaving it, I said. Do you know who I am? I don't care who, Wei Ji. I watched the name hit him like cold water down the collar. The sword stopped mid-draw, and you could see the whole cascade run behind his eyes. The challenge letter he'd sent. What had happened to his holy land within days of sending it. The old ancestors' new policy regarding anything Tianquan adjacent. And Ling Yun, 3rd prodigy of the East, sheathed his sword, cupped his hands, said farewell, and left at the speed of a man exiting a building fire with dignity. The crowd that had followed the confrontation stood blinking. That's our Ling Yun. He didn't even swing. And then, because martial artists metabolize awe into greed on a 4-second cycle, they concluded that Ling Yun's cowardice was their opening, and several dozen of them came at me from every direction at once. 1 ring of pure yang fire, pushed out on a grandmaster's, a great venerable's spiritual pressure. Every killing technique in flight collapsed. The durable attackers went out in arcs like kite strings snapping. The unlucky ones didn't stay attackers long enough to leave. Then I smiled around at the survivors, politely, and walked off. And behind me, the crowd conducted the following recorded seminar. He smiled. Was that cork? I think it was courtesy. He killed 8 people smiling. That's worse. And on a peak above all of it, a woman in a pink dress watched me go with her eyes glittering, and said to the girl beside her, "What a pure yang holy body, paired with my sect's arts. I'd be a saint within the year." Her subordinate asked if they'd take me by force. Force? Said the sect master of the Joyous Union sect, wounded. Force is so boring. I met her performance debut 2 days later. I was deep in the realm, prospecting, when screaming approached. A woman in a pink dress fleeing through the trees. Help! Help! Pursued by a beast cultivator in half-human form who was cackling continuously, the way villains only do when they're worried the audience will miss the point. I stopped and watched this with my head tilted because every detail of it was wrong. Her hair was perfect, her dress was pressed mid-flight through undergrowth, her shoe soles were clean, her makeup was intact, her terror was pitched like a recital, and the pursuing beast kept adjusting his pace to hers like a dance partner. The whole production had the fit and finish of dinner theater in a bad inn. System. What am I looking at? Investigating. Result. This woman is the current sect master of the Joyous Union sect. She desires the host's pure yang holy body. However, she feels that taking it by force lacks romance. She has therefore staged this scenario so the host will rescue her, allowing her to remain at his side and seduce him at leisure. The Joyous Union sect. Of the demonic path's great schools, the one whose entire cultivation method is harvesting partners, and whose partners, as a rule, do not survive the harvest. The woman sprinting picturesquely toward me had a body count in the 5 figures, next to which Yulan was a hobbyist. Noted. Anything else? Reminder. The sect master of the Joyous Union sect is a celestial venerable. Say that part first. Celestial venerable. 3 full realms over my head. I recalculated my heroics budget in 1 clock tick and executed the only technique appropriate to the tactical picture, which is the one where you turn around and leave at flank speed. She rounded the tree line, hit her mark, flung out a hand. Young master, save em, to an audience of 0. Vacated forest. A cackling coworker slowing to a confused walk behind her. I have the after-action meeting from the system, verbatim, and I treasure it. He ran? These righteous path disciples love rescuing damsels. Sect master, is it possible we were detected? Impossible. My acting is superb. And then, undeterred, this woman's spirit, in a better cause, would have unified the continent. She drafted Plan B on the spot. If the hero won't save the damsel, then the damsel will save the hero. Go hire me some demonic cultivators to attack him. Meanwhile, I'd made a much better acquaintance. I followed battle sounds to a clearing and found a woman in white fighting a 2-headed python 100 meters long. 1 head breathing fire, 1 head water, the whole beast reeking of eaten humans. Top-tier bloodline beast, mid-tier morals. The woman's sword work was superb, and her aura was top battle king, and when she rose into the air and her sword chi condensed into an actual full moon that rained blades, I placed her. The Bright Moon Sword Technique. Su Qingyan, Saintess of the Bright Moon Sacred Ground, 2nd on the Heaven's Pride ranking. The list's number 2, live, in concert. I settled in to watch, partly professional interest, partly because after the Pink production I was verifying everyone's shoe soles before involvement. She had the python shredded and losing when it made its break, and here the universe expressed its opinion of my day, because out of the entire compass, the python fled in my direction, saw me in its path, and roared at me to move. I want it noted that I was a bystander, a spectator, a man eating metaphorical melon seeds at the back of the theater. It breathed its whole double arsenal at me, a flood and a firestorm braided together, and I sighed and put up 1 hand of pure yang fire, and the firestorm joined my fire, and the flood left as steam, and the python had time to say the words pure yang in a tone of vast unfairness before it stopped being anything at all. Su Qingyan landed, looked at the ash, looked at me, and said, "You're Wei Ji of the Du Xian sect." That's me. Excellent. She leveled the sword at my chest. Fight me. Miss, do we have some grudge? None. Then, the strong draw against the stronger. Perfectly matter of fact, eyes alight. I'm 2nd on the ranking. You're 1st. It's simply correct that I challenge you. I looked at this sword idiot, I use the term with respect, it's a recognized type and the best of them are magnificent, and tried to decline, and she interpreted my reluctance instantly and in the most characteristic way possible. Ah, I understand. No stakes. And she reached into her storage ring and produced a 7-colored ginseng, a supreme-grade herb, base material for saint-grade pills, the very prize she just fought the python over, and put it on the table without blinking. Beat me, and it's yours. Deal. She came at me with the full art. The moon rose over the clearing, beautiful, genuinely. 1,000 swords rained out of it. I answered with the only sword I know. The phoenix went up through her moon and broke it, and before she'd finished traveling backwards, my sword finger was at her throat with pure yang fire breathing on it. 1 move. She hung there a second, cross-eyed at my fingertip, recalculating, and I watched her arrive, fast and clean, at the right answer. Because a sword idiot's brain works fine outside the obsession. 1 move. Even against the 1st of the ranking, I shouldn't lose in 1, unless you're not an ordinary supreme. You're a great venerable. I put the finger away and held out my palm, and she paid the ginseng over without a flicker of Welsh in her, and then, in the same breath, produced the counteroffer that made the whole trip. Partner with me. I have a medicine-finding secret art. It locates precious herbs at range. But the best ones are guarded by things I can't beat alone. Your fist, my compass, 50-50. A treasure-dowsing radar, wired to the 2nd strongest prodigy in the East, offering me half of everything it found. Miss Sue, I said, we're going to be great friends. We were, too. The art was everything advertised. Her eyes would flash. She'd call it 1,000-year blood reishi, 30 li south, and there it'd be. 3,000-year he shu wu, east, guarded, and the guard would be some near-supreme beast that met one phoenix and became a rug. 2 days of this. My storage ring stopped being luggage and became an apothecary. Until, over a 10,000-year snow lotus, the sky curdled. Devilish chi went up in columns, and out of the biggest one came a white-haired old man in blue and red robes whose aura I recognized by flavor before he even roared it. Pay back my grandson's life. The python. The python had a grandfather. The grandfather was a grand venerable, my own realm, and flanking him, arriving separately with the 2 casual gait of hired men trying to look like fate, came 3 more auras. Supremes. Demonic path ones. I looked at Su Qingyan. She looked at me with one eyebrow at an altitude that said, "The devil chi is for you, I assume." And I sighed and consulted the system, which confirmed the billing. The 3 Supremes were the Joyous Union Sect Master's hired cast. Plan B, now in production. Batter the hero to death's door, then the damsel saves him, then gratitude does the rest. The grandfather, for the record, was not in the script. A genuine grieving avenger who'd wandered into someone else's theater production, and the confusion between the hired cast and the walk-on was visible from where I stood. Is the python one of ours? Nobody briefed me on a python. Miss Sue, I said, watching the noose close and beginning, privately, to enjoy myself. Don't worry, we'll be fine. Fine? That old man is your realm, and those 3 are Supremes. In what arithmetic, trust me. And to her lasting credit, she did. The fight itself. The grandfather and I went blade to claw across the clearing, mountains ringing, honestly even. A real grand venerable is not a tea party opponent. And then the 3 hired Supremes glanced at the shadows where their employer was certainly watching, concluded that visible effort was a contract deliverable, and piled on. 4 on 1. My situation acquired, by design, the exact aesthetics of desperation the script called for. On cue, perfume. Petals filled the clearing, thousands, spiraling, and down through them, radiant, stepping on flowers, came the sect master of the Joyous Union sect, and drove the python grandfather back 10 steps with one palm, and cried, in a voice pitched to carry, "Prodigious demonic cultivators! While I stand here, you shall not harm this young master." She landed protectively in front of me, back to me, silhouette arranged, and gave me a moment to drink in my salvation. And in that moment, I took Su Qingyan's wrist and left at the highest speed I own. I want you to picture it as the clearing pictured it. The savior, mid-pose, petals still falling, turning around with her comfort the hero face already assembled, to an audience of 0. Again, her hired Supremes standing in a row with their punches half-cocked. The grieving grandfather, who now charged her in his confusion, and whom she killed one-handed by the neck out of sheer thwarted fury, which, I did point this out later, was the single most effective thing anyone did for me all day. Hundreds of miles away, I let us stop, and Su Qingyan pulled her wrist back and stared at me with an expression teetering between scandal and awe. Young Master Wei, you just abandoned your savior. Miss Sue, do you know who that savior was? Who? The sect master of the Joyous Union sect. I watched the hiss go through her. Celestial Venerable, the Joyous Union sect. But why would she save? She's courting me. A pause, while the second-ranked prodigy of the Eastern continent sorted this. Let me assemble the sequence. A celestial venerable of the demonic path staged your death in order to rescue you from it, because she wants you, and you fled the rescue, with me, leaving her standing in her own petals. Twice, actually. There was an earlier production. Her acting hasn't improved. But she could take you by force. Why the theater? She feels force lacks romance. The demonic path, said Su Qingyan, with the care of a scholar annotating a foreign text, has an extraordinary inner life. So we keep looting and stay out of her way. As long as it's theater, we're fine. And if she stops playing? If she uses real force. And here I smiled and touched the jade pendant at my waist, the one my master had tossed me without a word of explanation. The one the system said carried a thread of her divine sense and a charge of her actual power. Then, I said, I have something harder. 2 days later, the realm's heart came up for air, and everything went wrong at once. A mountain in the realm's center began to shake, then split, and out of the crack poured red light and a hunger of spiritual chi that bent the whole sky toward it, every wisp of energy in the realm spiraling into a vortex over the peak. And in the glowing seam of the mountain, we could all see it, a sword, red as jade, red as a wound, grown by the realm itself the way an oyster grows a pearl. The core treasure, an innate divine weapon, a blade born from heaven and earth, no forge involved, the single most valuable object in the entire realm, surfacing in front of everyone. The stampede was immediate. The first man to lunge got cut out of the air by a swordlight, Ling Yun, arriving at speed, roaring, "This is mine!" who then spotted me in the crowd and visibly experienced theology. You could watch him negotiate with himself in real time. He's just watching. Maybe he doesn't want it. As long as he doesn't reach for it, I still have hope. And then the petals started falling, and the whole mountainside groaned as one. She descended through her own perfume, radiant, terrible, and a man near the front made the mistake of saying what everyone was thinking, the witch, and she smiled at him warmly and put one finger through his throat from 30 paces. A supreme. He was dead before his knees bent, wearing the expression of a man who never saw the hand move. You're right, she said pleasantly to the corpse. I am a witch. Then she turned the smile on me. Young Master Wei, our third meeting, isn't it? Feels about right. So you knew me the first 2 times. Head tilted, genuinely curious, a professional requesting notes. Where did I slip? What gave it away? Your acting is terrible. A silence, while the deadliest woman in the realm processed this review and rejected it as impossible. Perceptive, she decided. Even my superb acting couldn't fool you. Well then. Since the soft wave fails, and the warmth drained out of the clearing like heat out of a corpse, we'll do it the hard way. Will you come along on your own feet, Wei Jie, or must I carry you? I have a policy against becoming jerky. So we fought, briefly, in the sense that a man can be said to fight the tide. I gave it everything, and I want the sequence on the record, because everything had gotten to be a lot. The Phoenix sword art, she waved it apart. The Vajra subduing demon fist, full Arhat, a punch that made Ling Yun in the audience privately price it at 10 of himself. She cut it open with a sword made of flower petals. Pure yang piercing sun, my trump, the sun-piercing pillar. That one she took seriously. It cost her 2 steps of ground and the first honest surprise of the evening. A remarkable divine ability, she said, straightening. Truly, but I'm bored of playing now. And the celestial venerable stopped condescending. Her pressure came down like a falling ocean. 3 full realms. I felt my options close one by one, felt her hand come up and 5 fingers open, felt the lock of her power settle over me joint by joint. Below her realm, no one resists that grip. It wasn't an attack. It was repossession. So I took out the jade pendant. She glanced at it, an unremarkable disc of stone on a cord, swept it with her divine sense, found nothing, and laughed. Trinkets? Oh, I'll enjoy educating you. The pendant lit. I don't have good language for what came out of it. Pressure isn't the word. Pressure is what strong cultivators do. This was more like a change in the law. Every living thing on that mountainside went to the ground at once. The crowd, the prodigies, Ling Yun, Su Qingyan, all of them flattened into the dirt, and the sect master of the Joyous Union sect, celestial venerable of the demonic path, harvester of 10,000, was driven to her knees with her silk in the mud, staring up at the little stone in my hand with the first real expression I'd ever seen on her face. What? She said. What is that? And from inside the pendant's light, someone made a small, bored sound. A hand came out of the light, slender, pale, unhurried, a woman's hand, reaching lazily out of a piece of jade the way you'd reach across a bed for a cup, carrying, folded inside its casualness, the whole weight of heaven and earth. The sect master of the Joyous Union sect had time to begin a scream. The hand closed, and where a celestial venerable had knelt, ash went out over the flowers like the end of a stick of incense, and the petals, still falling from her own entrance, settled on the ground she'd stopped existing above. The light folded itself back into the pendant. The mountain got its weather back. Slowly, in total silence, several hundred cultivators picked themselves out of the dirt and looked at me, and at the little stone I was hanging back on my belt. And nobody said anything at all, because what was there to say? Only Ling Yun, face down through the whole event, had the reference material to guess right. That hand. That's the one. That's the monster that flattened my Holy Land. And 6,000 miles away, on a bed on a shabby green mountain, a sleeping woman opened one eye, curled her lip, and said, to no one, a mere celestial venerable, coveting my disciple, and went back to sleep. Master, I said to the pendant, from the bottom of my heart, is awesome. Su Qingyan came up beside me, looked at the ash, looked at the pendant, swallowed, and finally solved me. I watched the last piece go in. That's why he's fearless. With that on his belt, I'd swagger too. I'd like to tell you we then collected the red sword and went home. Instead, the mountain exploded. Not the treasure seam, the whole mountain. It burst like a boil, and what poured out was not spiritual chi, but devilish chi. Black-red, greasy, wrong, in quantities that made no sense, fountaining up and out over the entire realm. People too slow to run were touched by it, and I need you to know what the touch did, because it defines everything after. They came apart, liquefied. A man in mid-scream became a man-shaped fall of blood, and the chi moved on, fatter. And overhead, across the whole sky of the pocket world, runes ignited, thousands of them, a lattice from horizon to horizon, sealing every exit at once. The stampede for the boundary hit the barrier and bounced. Su Qingyan put her full moon into it. Nothing. Ling Yun's dragon force punch. Nothing. 40 cultivators channeling together, supremes among them. The barrier did not acknowledge the attempt. It was a formation scholar in the crowd, gray-faced, who gave it its name and us the bad news. The heavenly demon blood transformation array. One of the three great formations of the demonic path. Once it closes, everything inside becomes blood. Even a celestial venerable doesn't walk out of it. The secret realm was never a windfall. Every prodigy of the righteous path young generation, the sect heirs, the Holy Land saints and saintesses, the entire future of the Eastern continent had been gathered into one sealed jar by design, and the lid had just gone on. The jade slips were dead. The formation cut the realm off from the world entire. Ling Yun stood there pouring true essence into his Holy Land beacon and getting silence. Then we save ourselves, said Su Qingyan, who is at her very best in exactly this register. Scholar, the formation, where does it live? He pointed into the boiling black heart of it, the core treasure, the red sword. They've bound it as the array's engine. Destroy its bindings and the array starves. But, and here his honesty got the better of his tact, the qi thickens toward the center. To carry a pure yang fire through to the core, the bearer would need to be a mystic venerable at least. Mystic venerable, third realm of supreme. I was a great venerable. One realm short, by the scholarship. I looked at the wall of devilish qi eating the realm toward us at walking pace. I looked at Su Qingyan's sword barrier, already going up over the survivors, already dimming at the edges. I touched the jade pendant, which had one miracle spent and no user manual for how many remained. I'll give it a try, I said, and several hundred people, rivals, strangers, men who'd attacked me over a fruit the week before, bowed to my back as I walked into the black, and what they called after me I didn't earn until later. Young master, you are truly righteous. Outside the realm, I stitched this together afterwards. From saints' own mouths, the continent had caught fire. The moment the array lit, a pair of eyes opened in the Piao Miao Holy Land, and the old ancestor was airborne inside a breath, robes snapping, and so were his peers. The bright moon saintess out of her sacred ground, the mountain dragon saint off his mountain. Three saints converging on the realm at full burn, because every one of them had children in that jar. And the demonic path was ready for exactly that, because the jar was the plan, and the saints were the contingency page. From the Valley of Lost Souls, the demonic path's own royalty sortied to intercept, the twin saints of the demonic path, out of legend after 300 years. The Blood Sea Old Man took the bright moon saintess in the south, palm strikes that raised an ocean of blood against her moonlight, mountains dying around them as collateral. She told him, conversationally, between exchanges that erased geography, if anything has happened to my disciple Su Qingyan, your demonic path will run red to the last man. The snow-pride sword demon, sun and moon twin swords, the greatest demonic swordsman of a millennium, drew against the mountain dragon saint in the west, and the old ancestor of the Piao Miao Holy Land drew two celestial venerables. He was, my sources agree, personally offended. The other two get saints, and I get, what is this, middle management? Then the middle management unfurled a 10,000 soul banner at sacred artifact grade, 1,000,000 murdered souls woven into a weapon, blotting out the sun for 100 miles, and the insult became work. But here is the part I treasure, the part multiple witnesses confirmed. Mid-battle, wading through a blizzard of ghosts, the saint of the Piao Miao Holy Land bellowed at his enemies, not a challenge, but a question. Is Li Xuan inside that realm? The celestial venerables, throne. He's the head of their young generation. Naturally, he's a target. Naturally, he's inside. And the old ancestor began to laugh, and the laughter had no fun in it at all. Then you have no idea what you've done. If anything happens to that boy, your entire demonic path goes into the ground with him. I'm not fighting to save the righteous path, you imbeciles. I'm fighting to save you. They took it for a saint's bluster. He looked at them. He told me this himself. Much later, over wine he insisted on pouring, with the loneliness of the only sober man at a bonfire. And the one being on the continent who could have ended all of it with a wave, the woman whose disciple was at the exact center of the sealed jar, cracked one eye at the horizon where 6 saint-class auras were bending the sky, muttered, "It's a scuffle. Must they make such a production of it? Some of us are sleeping," and rolled over. She wasn't being careless. I understand the arithmetic now. I had her pendant. Ergo, I was fine. Ergo, the rest was noise. On Tian Chuan Peak, my junior sisters stood outside their cabins watching saint light flicker at the world's edge like heat lightning. Lin Xiaohui whispered, "That's a saint's power? From tens of thousands of miles?" And Wei Mei He looked at the horizon with her arms crossed and delivered, with the flat authority of an empress reviewing a rural militia, "A few ordinary saints. In my prime, I'd have slapped the lot." A pause. I must cultivate harder. And she went back inside and did, and thereby, hold this thought, saved several hundred lives, including mine. Inside the array, I was learning the difference between scholarship and fieldwork. The scholar had been right about the qi. It thickened toward the core like wading from surf into deep water, and my pure yang fire, nemesis of all evil, in daylight, burned against it with a sound like meat on a grill and got heavier to feed with every mile. Alone, my furnace would have guttered somewhere in the middle dark. I did not run on my furnace alone. In my chest, serene, indifferent to ambiance, the supreme bone kept doing the only thing it does, drinking the world and making true essence, an auto-cultivating engine that no formation had been consulted about. I walked to the heart of the heavenly demon blood transformation array on a lazy man's passive income. And there it was, the red sword, upright in the dark, wrapped in chains of woven devilish chi, a newborn innate divine weapon, shackled into service as the engine of a slaughterhouse. Even from range, you could feel it straining against the harness. Swords have opinions. This one's opinion was mutiny. So I don't cut the sword, I said. I cut the leash. I drew the flawless sword, and the dark bloomed killing intent from 3 directions at once. 3 Supremes stepped out of the chi, and I knew them. The joyous Union sect masters hired caste, moonlighting for the main event now that their employer was Ash. In open daylight, 3 Supremes are an errand. In here, with most of my output mortgaged to keeping the chi off my skin, the ledger tilted honest. They saw it too. Killers can read a power bill, and their leader smiled the smile of a man finding money on the ground. Wei Jie, so selfless, walking alone into the array to save all those people. The 3 spread out, unhurried. The head of the Heaven's Pride ranking delivered. If this boy lives, none of us eat safely again. Kill him here. What followed was the hardest fight of my life to that date, and I want it recorded without varnish. They were winning. Phoenix sword art, dimmed in here, broken. Vajra fist, landed, cost them, not enough. Sword in right hand, fist off the left, 3 killers rotating through cursed chi and ghost swarms and black devil fire, my true essence draining out both ends of the budget, and me thinking, with what spare capacity remained, about a jade pendant with an unknown number of charges left, and how much I did not want the second one spent on this. And then, far away on a green mountain, my little sisters finished their day's training. Ding! Lin Xiaohui has advanced to Golden Core 4th layer. Feedback. Host advances to Great Venerable Peak. Ding! Wei Mei He has advanced to the Profound Realm. Feedback. Host advances to Mystic Venerable. 2 bells, 1 breath apart. Somewhere, Wei Mei He was dusting off her hands after a breakthrough powered by pure spite at some distant saints. And in the middle of the deadliest formation of the demonic path, surrounded, half spent, her senior brother went off like a second sunrise. Mystic Venerable. The exact realm the scholar had named, the threshold of the possible, crossed mid-parry by mail. The chi for miles around me, the chi that had been the whole problem, burned off in one wing beat of the phoenix. The 3 Supremes stood suddenly in clean air and firelight, staring at a man who had jumped a realm between their heartbeats, and their faces did the thing. The arithmetic thing, the what is he thing. And I gave them my honest summary as I came forward. My junior sisters, I absolutely love them. You 3, though, should prepare to die. The first went to the Phoenix. The second traded his Blackfire fist against my Vajra Arhat and lost everything on the exchange. The third ran, which was the correct read, and had made almost 40 feet when pure yang piercing sun caught him between the shoulders and delivered him to his colleagues. Then I turned to the red sword and cut the chains with one stroke. The sword came off its leash like a hawk off a glove, hung burning in the air, free, newborn, furious, and chose, of the available universe, to fly to me. I caught it out of the dark. Not quite a sacred artifact, the connoisseurs would say later. Close, close, for a sword 5 minutes old. The array, decored, was already staggering. I aimed the flawless sword at the roof of the world and gave the Phoenix everything the new realm could feed it. The stroke went up through the black like dawn deciding to skip the negotiations, and the heavenly demon blood transformation array, one of the 3 terrors of the demonic path, the jar meant to hold a generation, blew apart from the inside, rune lattice to boiling chi, all of it, one sword. Light came back to the realm from horizon to horizon. At the survivor's barrier, where Su Qingyan's moon had been down to its last pale rind, Ling Yun and 40 strangers pouring their essence into her sword to keep it lit. The whole huddled crowd of the eastern continent's future watched the black sky peel open, and the roar that went up, I'm told, was audible in the next province. And far away, mid-duel, the twin saints of the demonic path felt their masterpiece die and could not, for a long moment, make themselves believe the flavor of the fire that killed it. Pure yang. That's the boy? The boy is a great venerable at most. There are variables here we don't know, said the blood-sea old man, which is saint for run, and the demonic path left the field. The saints reached the realm to find it already saved, and the debrief turned into a reception. Every survivor in that realm bowed to me on sight. Thank you, young Master Wei. Young Master Wei, truly righteous. And the phrase had stopped being flattery and become a title while I was busy. Ling Yun stood at the edge of it wearing the face of a man whose worldview needed reshoeing. His rival had outgrown rivalry, lapped it, and then saved him. And the old ancestor himself drifted over to administer elder care. Prodigies like that come one to an era. Don't measure yourself against him. Cultivate well, and perhaps you'll catch up. Perhaps. To a junior. From a saint. And then the saints themselves came to pay respects, and the crowd got to watch the ranking of the world rearrange itself in real time. The old ancestor of the Piao Miao Holy Land greeting me first, warmly, deferentially. Young Master Wei, more radiant than ever, my admiration, while 2 other saints exchanged glances over his bowed head. What does he know that we don't? What is this boy's background? And then, prudently, bowed too. The bright moon saintess looked me over with her disciple at her side and delivered her verdict to the general air. I'd only heard the name. In person, what a pity I'm several centuries too old. Were I younger, I'd pursue him myself. Fairy Qingyan, said the mountain dragon saint, deadpan, you look exactly as you did back then. I wouldn't let him slip by. Sadly, I'm a man and unworthy of a pure yang holy body. The old ancestor, I noticed, quietly moved several steps away from both of them, with the air of a man distancing himself from a lightning rod. I understood the physics later. He was picturing a woman with a spear hearing this conversation secondhand. The mountain dragon saint then turned the reception into a council of war, and this part was iron. The demonic path had baited a realm to murder the entire rising generation, and the righteous path was not going to file it under grievances. The three holy lands would raise a joint demon-slaying campaign, the Valley of Lost Souls itself, and every survivor in earshot signed on with real heat, because everyone there had personally been inside the jar. I made no speeches, but they'd tried to render me into blood along with everyone else, and my name was evidently at the top of their list going forward, and a man should attend the settling of his own accounts. I marked the date. And as I made my farewells, 2 last seeds went into the ground behind me. Su Qingyan stood watching me go for longer than manners strictly cover, and her master read her like a large print scroll and said, smiling, "Shall I propose the marriage to the Duxian sect on your behalf?" And my treasure-hunting partner, second prodigy of the East, terror of pythons, went scarlet and said master, and then, notably, did not say no. Terms were set between them, half in jest, wholly in earnest. When she breaks through to Supreme, the Bright Moon's sacred ground goes to the Duxian sect to propose. And the old ancestor, overhearing, had a rapid private thought. Marriage alliance. We also have a saintess. That's one way to finally bind the boy and his master to us. And then remembered that the Piao Miao Holy Land saintess was Long DG, currently serving year 1 of 10 in a cave for crimes against this exact person, and aged 10 years in one sai, and went home to sleep. They started calling it out at the mountain gate before I'd even landed. "Greetings, chief." I stood in the gate of the Duxian sect, getting chiefed from every direction. The invented title had propagated in my absence, and elders twice my age were bowing with it, and walked up my own green mountain half drunk on homecoming, and got hit at knee height by a white missile before I reached the huts. Shui Ying, ears flat with joy, up my robe and into my arms in one practiced motion, just as both cabin doors banged open at once. 2 junior sisters emerged, the held the rabbit already installed in my arms, and briefly stopped being rivals in favor of a shared and ancient grief. They told me later, both of them, separately, in nearly the same words, the actual content of that look. Sometimes I envy her. She's a rabbit, so she's allowed. It makes a person want to be a rabbit. Then dinner and the accounting. I laid the whole trip out, the fruit, the witch, the ash, the jar, the walk into the black, the 2 bells that saved me, and watched my household receive it. They didn't wail. That's not the house style. Wei Meihe went very still, and something crossed her face with a temperature I recognized from the ruler's pocket world, and what she was thinking, she informed me of it years later as a historical footnote, was that if I had died in there, she would not have grieved so much as annexed. Every demonic cultivator on the eastern continent, skinned, catalogued, extinct. Lin Xiaohui held her cup in both hands and thought, same footnote, same archive, if something happens to him, I will go mad, and meant it clinically. And the rabbit in my lap bared her teeth at nothing, eyes gone ruby red, drafting a petition to her mother, the clan chief, to mobilize a Saint-tier beast dynasty for one man's sake. I looked around my table at 1 warm rabbit and 2 glowing girls and felt, honestly, only the coziness. The single most protected man on the continent, cataloging his blessings, blind as ever to their caliber. Anyway, I said, into the warmth, senior brother came home with quite a haul. Give me a few days at the furnace. I'll make you some pills. And Lin Xiaohui's eyes lit up with a technician's curiosity. He knows alchemy, but how well? And across the table, I could see Wei Meihe running the same file and hitting the same wall. I've never once seen him study pills. He can't also be a master of that. No one is a genius at everything. But I've thought that before. I've thought that every time. She had too. And she'd been wrong every time. And she was about to be wrong again. And some part of her already knew it. I watched her decide, with visible effort, to believe in a fair universe one more time. Her ruler chimed for her that same evening. The 4th comparison approaches. Subject, QI refining. And for the first time in the history of that artifact, the announcement was met with pure, undiluted joy, because she audited this one too, and this time the audit came back clean at every line. Chi refining, raw speed at converting the world's spiritual chi into your own true essence, comes down to 3 factors, and she went through them like a merchant checking a ledger. Cultivation, the ruler equalizes it. Dead heat, no edge either way. Physique, I am the phoenix holy body. He's pure yang, which is famous for its fire and its other properties, but for raw refining speed, it doesn't touch mine. Edge, me. Technique, he cultivates the Duxian sect's immortal ascension technique, a decent sect art. I am an empress with a library of 1,000 methods in my skull, and I've been running the northern darkness technique, a saint-grade art from a continent this one has never heard of. Edge, me, enormously. 2 categorical advantages, 0 disadvantages, in a contest with no room for cleverness. She checked it twice. The only thing that could beat me is if senior brother is carrying something like a supreme bone, some second sacred physique that drinks ambient chi on its own. But that would mean one person holding two sacred bodies. Impossible. Absurd. Therefore, I win. I want to note for the historical record that her reasoning was flawless. Every step of it was correct. And while she was completing this proof, I walked in and put my hand on her head. Meha, profound realm already? You're moving fast. And my junior sister, mid-victory lap over my imminent defeat, looked up at her senior brother, beaming with pride at her progress, and experienced what she later described to me, verbatim, as the worst 3 seconds of my moral life. He's happy for me, and I'm happy because he's about to lose. I'm garbage. I'm the worst junior sister in the… And then rallying. No, wait, the one inside the ruler is only a projection. It's not really him. It's fine. It's fine. Senior brother, said Lin Xiaohui instantly, from 3 feet away. I improved too. She had. Golden core 3 to 4. I patted her head as well, because I have learned that in this household, head pats are a currency and shortages cause unrest, and watched her glow and then immediately deflate, because senior sister had just made profound realm, and she was still golden core, and Lin Xiaohui's whole engine runs on that comparison. I need strange fires. That's my only accelerator. I need to find out where the next strange fire in the world is going to be. Hold that thought too. It cost us all a great deal later, but first I owed my master a thank you, and my master, it turned out, owed me a lesson in the field of diplomacy. I went to the immortal cave and found her horizontal as usual, propped on one elbow, long legs under a thin veil, reading. What are you thanking me for? The jade pendant, master. It saved my life. Oh? From what? The sect master of the Joyous Union sect intended to collect me. Oh. She put the book down with genuine interest. A love rival. And you know, the Joyous Union sect master is famously a great beauty. Little Jidza, you won't hold it against your master for ruining your good fortune, will you? And I want you to appreciate the fork in the road that I was standing on. Because option 1 was to insult the dead woman's looks, which was a lie. She was objectively spectacular, I have eyes, and my master detects flattery the way a hound detects blood, and being caught in a cheap lie in that cave costs the same as everything else costs in that cave. Option 2 was to praise another woman's beauty. To this woman, in this room, on this mountain. I took a breath and went straight down the middle at speed. The sect master of the Joyous Union sect was a beauty of the first rank. Every movement she made was designed to capture a man. The temperature began to drop. I did not slow down. And so what? However beautiful she was, in my eyes, she isn't 1/10,000th of master. No, comparing her to master is itself an insult to master. She isn't fit to be mentioned in the same breath. The temperature stopped dropping. A corner of my master's mouth moved about a millimeter. Little Jiedze, are you always this glib? Am I glib? Woman, you try walking that beam. Every word comes from the bottom of your disciple's heart. Look how nervous you are. She waved it off, entertained. Now, Li, you picked up a sword in that realm, didn't you? Let me see it. I handed over the red sword. She turned it once. Nearly sacred artifact grade. Not bad. Give me the flawless sword, too. I unhooked my own sword, my master's own forging. The blade she'd made me out of somebody's ancestral treasure, and handed it over. Leave them both. I'll fuse them. I left that cave floating, and on the threshold, having survived a lethal conversational minefield through pure footwork, I made the mistake I always make. I let out a breath and muttered, to myself, in a voice I would have sworn was inaudible, Heavens, master, jealous of a Joyous Union sect master. Who, said the immortal cave, is jealous? I ran. I made it perhaps 9 steps before something came out of that cave, crossed the intervening distance, and applied itself to my backside with a report like a snapped flagpole. And I ran considerably faster after that. Behind me, in the cave, my master smiled at nothing, and then raised her hand, and crimson flame poured out and swallowed both swords whole. And she reached into her storage ring and took out a handful of forging ores, materials that any smith on the continent would have wept to see, and fed them all into the fire. I picked these up on my last trip to Piao Miao Holy Land, she murmured. Might as well use the lot. She did not, at the time, examine why she had bothered to pick up forging ore from a holy land she'd gone to on her disciple's behalf, when to her the stuff was so much scrap metal. The obvious answer surfaced anyway, uninvited, and she stamped on it flat. Nonsense. As if I'd think that far ahead for that brat. I grabbed it with the spirit stones by accident. The boy got lucky. I got back to my own house, laid out the entire Secret Realm hall beside the Medicine Field's century-grade harvest, chose my first formula, sorted my herbs by order of addition, and then sat there for a while with my hands on my knees. I did not own a pill furnace. I lay down on my bed and put both hands over my face. An alchemy grandmaster, a rank the whole continent has a handful of, whose refined output is fought over by holy lands with no furnace. If it got out, nobody would believe it, and the ones who did would laugh harder. But the sect has a fire peak, and the fire peak has a lord, and the lord is an alchemy great master in his own right, and I was now, I keep forgetting, the chief great master, which apparently opens doors at a walk. Tianhuo Peak Lord received me delightedly and led me up into his workshop, a hot, bright attic full of flame and iron. 7 furnaces, nephew, my whole personal collection. Take any one, it's yours. They were beautiful, in fairness. Three-legged bronze with landscape engravings, four-legged black iron carved with ancient beasts, and in the corner, sulking under dust, a small, rusted, thoroughly wretched thing. My eyes went to it like iron to a lodestone. Peak Lord, what's the story with that one? That? Bought it in a market as a young man. Seller swore it was an heirloom of some ancient alchemy family. I studied it for a year and found nothing at all. I was fleeced, plainly. Kept it out of stubbornness. A rusted, worthless, ancient furnace, dismissed by an expert, sitting in a corner for decades. I want you to understand that I come from a world with a literature about this. In every story I read as a boy, the dented lamp is the genie, the rusty blade is the godslayer, the scruffy furnace an old master couldn't crack opens up for the protagonist on contact. May I test it? By all means. I put pure yang fire into that furnace and it began to glow, deep red, and my heart soared. Load, and then it exploded. Not opened, not awakened. Exploded into approximately 40 pieces, which distributed themselves across the workshop floor, while Tianhu Peak Lord laughed so hard he had to hold a workbench. Nephew, your fire's too strong. That poor old thing hadn't been lit in 30 years. I stood in the debris of my own genre expectations. The novels lied. Every one of them lied. There is no free treasure in the trash bin. I am not, apparently, the protagonist where materials are concerned. Peak Lord, I sincerely apologize. For what? A broken old pot that never did anything. Take a real one. And then, because he is a genuinely decent man with the mildest possible ulterior motive. Say, I didn't know you dabbled in alchemy, nephew. Might I sit in and watch? I said, of course. He came home with me, and I know exactly what he was thinking on the walk because he told me later, laughing at himself. The boy's a martial monster, so alchemy will be a hobby he's dabbled in. I'll sit at his elbow and offer a few gentle corrections, and a prodigy's gratitude is a fine thing for an old Peak Lord to own. He also, en route, saw my green mountain for the first time and got distracted. This is all your work? Nephew, you're more the master of Tianshuan Peak than your master is. Both junior sisters nodded at this with such immediate sincerity that I had to look at the immortal cave and cough. Where is Jiang Shu? Asleep as usual? Forging a weapon. For me. For her? Forging? For a disciple? The Peak Lord's eyebrows went up into his hairline, and then he looked at me with open admiration. She must have watched how you teach those girls and felt ashamed of herself. Miraculous. Truly, a stroke of conscience at her age. Another day of that man envying my master, her apprentice. Another day of my master deserving none of it and getting all of it anyway. I got the furnace lit before he could work himself up. Then I made pills, and my life changed shape again. Lin Xiaohui settled in to watch with shining eyes. Finally, senior brother's alchemy, and Tianhuo Peak Lord settled in beside her, with his gentle corrections all loaded and ready. Within 4 minutes, both of them had stopped breathing normally. Because I started by putting the green spirit fruit in, a supreme-grade elixir fruit, the thing 100 cultivators had brawled over for a full day, the thing that alone can make a supreme, went into my furnace first, as a base material, and melted in a way that supreme-grade materials are not documented as melting. Then 2 herbs that every text in the world lists as incompatible went in together and did something violent and correct. Then my flame control, which I had never practiced once, did things to a fire that a lifelong great master could not follow with his eyes. Lin Xiaohui, new to the art and therefore working from an incomplete ladder, whispered, "Senior brother, are you a first-rate alchemist?" "No. Are you an alchemy great master?" And beside her, the actual alchemy great master's lips twitched, because he was watching from the top of the ladder she was standing halfway up. And from up there, the view was different and much worse. I can't follow it. I am a great master of this art, and I cannot follow a single decision he's making. That's not skill. That's turning rot into miracle. That's a grandmaster. I noticed none of this. I was somewhere else entirely, in the place the art puts you, where the whole world narrows to a furnace and a sequence, where every shift in the pill's color demands a matching shift in the flame, and one wrong beat wastes everything. First time at a furnace in my life, refining a supreme-grade pill, and my hands moved like they'd done it 10,000 times, because, in a sense, they had. That's what the system's gift actually is, not knowledge. Muscle memory I never earned. Hours passed. And then the furnace put out a smell. Not a smell, a weather. Cinnabar vapor came off that furnace in a column, and every flower and blade of grass around my house bloomed at once, and the vapor climbed into the sky over Tianshuan Peak and spread out into a red cloud that the entire Duxian sect could see and could breathe. I'm told what it felt like from the outside because hundreds of people have told me, like sinking into a hot spring, every meridian opening at once, qi coming in through the skin. Disciples who had been stuck for a decade felt their bottlenecks dissolve where they stood, and dozens of them, then hundreds, broke through on the spot, in courtyards and corridors and mid-meal from the fumes of a pill that was not yet finished. The whole sect erupted. Who's refining? Is it Tianhuo Peak? That's not Tianhuo. That direction's Tianshuan Peak. Tianshuan? Since when does Tianshuan Peak? The sect leader arrived at a dead run with 4 peak masters behind him, took in Tianhuo Peak Lord standing frozen with his mouth open, and made the natural assumption, and then saw who was actually at the furnace, and the red cloud came home. It flowed back down into the furnace like 100 rivers into the sea. The lid rang, and out came 12 pills, gold, turning slowly in the air. I bottled them. Wei Jie, said the sect leader in a voice not entirely his own. What did you just refine? The breakthrough pill. I've never heard of it. What does it do? What it says. I held the bottle up. It breaks a person through into the supreme realm. There is a specific silence that follows a sentence like that, and I got the full weight of it. A pill that makes supremes. In a world where a single supreme treasure pill is a thing Holy Land's hoard. 12 of them, in a bottle, in the hand of a 20-year-old on a bald mountain that had been growing weeds a month ago. And what, said the sect leader, with the careful casualness of a man who has been stuck at the threshold of supreme for 30 years, are your plans for them, nephew? I'm giving them to you, and to the Peak Masters, all 12. The silence changed flavor entirely. I'd like to say I did it out of pure virtue. Honestly, the arithmetic ran like this. I can make more. My mountain sits inside this sect. A sect with more supremes in it is a sect that survives the next demonic path scheme, and every one of these old men gave me courtesy before I'd earned any. But I said none of that, and what they saw was a boy handing over a fortune he'd made with his own hands, keeping none. Jingyun Peak's lord drew his sword, pointed it at the sky, and swore aloud. Actually swore, on a blade, in front of witnesses, that if his junior nephew ever had need of him, he would go through fire and water and not stop. The rest followed. If he says east, I will never go west. Nephew, from today, you're my father. Sect leader, why don't you retire and let him have the seat? I offered. He refused. I stood in the middle of this with a bottle in my hand and my ears burning. It was mortifying. It was also, I understand now, the hour the Duxian sect stopped being a sect I lived in and became a sect that belonged to me, whatever the org chart said. Then I went back to the furnace and made a second batch, harder work, and a subtler pill. Not the sledgehammer that breaks you into supreme, but the kind whose potency sinks into the body and stays there, feeding growth for years. It ate every supreme grade herb I had left and produced a handful. That handful was never for sale. That handful was for my junior sisters. I came out of a full day at the furnace, stretched until my spine cracked, and a pair of small hands landed on my shoulders and began, expertly, to knead. Senior brother must be exhausted. Let me. Lin Xiaohui, radiant with a convert's awe, and Mun. She has since admitted this, running a very clear-eyed strategic reassessment underneath. Alchemy Grandmaster. He makes supreme treasure pills like a man frying eggs. Why am I studying alchemy at all? Why am I refining anything? My optimal path is to stand extremely close to senior brother forever. Wei Mei He watched this from the side with her jaw set. Alchemy Grandmaster. There were a handful on the whole 9 songs continent. He can't have learned it. I'd have seen him learn it. And then, rather than lose the position, executed a flanking maneuver. Dragged over a wicker chair, planted it behind me, and pushed me into it. Senior brother must be tired. Sit. I'll do your legs. So I was pinned in a wicker chair, having my shoulders and legs worked on simultaneously by 2 junior sisters conducting a proxy war through my body, and I will not pretend it wasn't wonderful. Then Shuiying hopped into my lap and made it a full house, and lay there being petted, and turned her head to give both of them a slow, gloating look. Humans, you have to earn his attention with labor. I don't. I simply lie here and let him pet me. He's comfortable, I'm comfortable, and they're furious. It's not a win-win, it's a win-win-win. One day, said Wei Mei He pleasantly, to no one, roasted. With chili, agreed Lin Xiaohui. I handed out the pills. The spirit treasure pill for cultivation. Take it, it compounds. The life-creating pill, a healing pill of supreme grade. Carry it always, don't wait until you need it to remember it exists. And I watched both of them work out, in real time, that I had kept nothing. The breakthrough pills had gone to the sect. The growth pills had come to them. The healing pills had come to them. The alchemist had ended the day with an empty bottle. Senior brother, you gave everything away. What's left for you? Nothing I need. Cultivate hard. That's all senior brother wants out of it. Which, full disclosure, since I've been honest with you this far, was true in 2 senses at once. And the second sense was, cultivate hard, both of you, immediately, because every realm you climb dumps a realm into me. They did not hear the second sense. They heard an old father giving away his last coin. Both of them rushed me at once and hugged me hard. We'll work hard, senior brother, in unison, which they hated. 3 separate chimes went off behind my eyes, 1 for each of them, 10 points apiece, including the rabbit who had contributed to the hug in spirit only. I frowned at the air. System, these 2 were already at 100. How can it keep going up? Who told you the ceiling was 100? There is no ceiling. The higher it climbs, the more thoroughly they belong to you, which I filed at the time under nice. Little Jieze, said the immortal cave across the mountain, come here. I felt the chill before I got through the curtain. Inside, my master stood on her feet, which happens roughly as often as an eclipse, holding a long sword that looked carved out of white jade, and the pressure coming off that blade filled the cave like cold water. It was the flawless sword. It was also, unmistakably, no longer the sword I'd handed her. Master, it's finished? It's finished. She tossed it over. It's a sacred artifact now. With that in your hand, at Mystic Venerable, below Supreme Celestial Venerable, nothing can really threaten you. I turned it over in my hands, and the sword answered me the way a good horse answers a rider. A sacred artifact. There are perhaps a dozen in the Eastern continent, and the Holy Lands keep theirs in shrines and take them out for wars. And if I do meet a Supreme Celestial Venerable, run away. A yawn. And if you can't run, you still have the pendant. I considered this and found it, honestly, an excellent doctrine. She watched me admire the sword and then said, with a lightness I have learned to be extremely afraid of, "Isn't there something you'd like to say to your master?" Master went to enormous trouble to forge your disciple a sacred artifact. Your disciple is deeply grateful. Silence. I looked up. There was disappointment on her face. Actual disappointment, the small kind, quickly hidden, and I stood there running a frantic inventory. What else is there? Does she want me to? No, she'd hate that. She'd laugh. What does she? I hear, said my master, to the ceiling, in a voice like a dropped stone, that you refined a great many pills today, and gave them to those useless peak masters, and to your 2 junior sisters, and to the rabbit. A pause of exquisite precision. You certainly have a great deal to give away. And the entire structure came together in my head at once, and I nearly fell over. She didn't want the pill. The pill was useless to her. She is so far past supreme treasure pills that they're barley sugar. That was never the point. The point was that every single person on that mountain had received something from my hands today for doing nothing. And the one person who had spent the day working in fire, for me, had received a bow and a thank you. What everyone else gets, Master gets. What nobody else gets, Master especially gets. Even when she has no use for it. Especially when she has no use for it. I have never recovered a position faster in my life. I produced, from my sleeve, the one breakthrough pill I'd held back to test flavor on. Ah, my head, I nearly forgot. I refined this one specifically to offer to Master. I'd be grateful for your appraisal. She took it, tossed it in her mouth, and bit down on it like a boiled sweet. Then she frowned. It's bitter. It's medicine. It's not a cake. Master is right, I said. I'll improve the flavor next time. Make more then. If you need herbs, I'll fetch them for you. My eyes lit up. With her strength, there is no herb on this continent she couldn't simply go and take. When I have time, she added, and stretched and lay back down, and my expectations lay back down with her. This is a woman who considers a decade in bed a normal appointment. Waiting for her to run an errand is a life plan, not a schedule. Go on, forging that thing tired me out. I'm going to sleep for 10 days or so. Don't come knocking unless it's serious. I left with a sacred artifact in my hand and did the honest accounting on the walk home. That sword was worth more than every pill I'd refined that day put together, and I'd nearly paid for it with a bow. And it wasn't even the best trade of the week, because both junior sisters now had growth pills in their systems, and every realm they climbed would arrive in my chest by return post. A sacred artifact I couldn't fully wield yet, powered by 2 girls who were about to start climbing very fast indeed. The 4th comparison began that night, and I'd like to formally apologize to my junior sister for what happened in it. She went in cheerful. She bowed to my phantom across the great black and white ruler. Senior brother, please instruct me. Although, honestly, it would be lovely if you let me win just one. And there was a real crack of melancholy under the joke, because 3 losses in a row will do that to an empress. Then the ruler named the prize a Holy Spirit flower, Saint grade, a thing that raises your talent and your realm at once, and her melancholy evaporated on contact. She appeared in that space in a great tide, and both of them began to refine. Hers went beautifully. The northern darkness technique opened, and the ambient chi spiraled into her in a visible vortex. Phoenix Holy Body drinking it down at a rate no ordinary cultivator could match. On the other end, my phantom lit pure yang fire and ran the immortal ascension technique, exactly as she'd predicted. Inferior physique for this task, inferior method, and fell behind, exactly as she'd predicted. Everything is forecast, thought Wei Mei He, glowing. This time and in my phantom's chest, a golden light came on, a bone, bright, rune-carved, mysterious script crawling across it, visible through the projection like a lamp through cloth, and every wisp of chi in that pocket world changed direction, not just the free chi. The chi already inside her vortex, already claimed, already spiraling into her body. It reversed and went to him, ripped out of her grip mid-refinement because the supreme bone does not compete for ambient energy so much as it declares ownership. She watched her own vortex collapse and feed the man across from her. That's a supreme bone? She got out one more sentence before the ruler chimed. It has become, in the years since, one of the great quotations of Tianquan Peak, and she has never once been allowed to live it down. Senior brother, you cheated! Final tally. I drank 70% of that world's spiritual chi. She got under 30. Loss number 4. Comparison failed. Penalty task issued. Massage Wei Jia's shoulders and back for 3 days. On completion, the Supreme Grade Artifact 9 Dragon Fire Shield will be returned to the host. She lay on her bed absorbing this. A Supreme Artifact for 3 days of shoulder rubs. That's not a punishment, that's a salary. I do that voluntarily. I do that competitively, against a 15-year-old, at every opportunity. A pause. I also swore I'd write my name backwards if I lost. Nobody heard that. It was internal. It doesn't count. But the loss itself she let go faster than any of the others, because something much more interesting was bothering her. I have checked him, physically, more than once. There was a pure yang holy body and nothing else, no supreme bone anywhere in that chest. So where did a second sacred physique come from? Bones don't sprout. And then, in the dark, she arrived at the theory that has defined how my second junior sister has looked at me ever since. Unless neither of them is his real physique. Unless pure yang and the supreme bone are both just symptoms, expressions of something underneath that keeps producing them. That's why Master keeps examining him. She's not studying a holy body, she's watching something grow. Which would mean Senior Brother's true physique is above the holy body tier entirely. An emperor body, the kind born to rule an age. Or he really is an immortal, reincarnated, and none of us have noticed. Goodness, said the former empress of the 9 Songs continent to her ceiling at 3 in the morning. The secrets just keep coming out of him. Which brings us to the morning I discovered I was raising 2 hooligans. I opened my door at dawn and Wei Meihe was standing directly outside it, at attention, waiting. Junior sister, you've been there how long? You frightened me. Sorry, Senior Brother, she apologized sweetly and then stared with total focus at the middle of my chest. I found this uncomfortable. I ran through explanations and reached, I'm ashamed to report, a very self-flattering one, which I then dismissed on the grounds that my junior sister is 13 and not that sort of person, and reproached myself for having a mind that furnishes such theories at all. Senior Brother, she said, your chest looks very solid. May I touch it? I stood there with my mouth open, wondering where my sweet, innocent junior sister had gone and who this small brigand was. Then I actually looked at her face, and her eyes were clear as water and lit with pure curiosity, no mischief in it at all, the exact expression she wears in front of an unfamiliar sword. So I did what a Senior Brother does, which is deliver a values lecture. Second sister, even so, you cannot simply ask to touch people. That's for family, for the very closest. Am I not close enough to Senior Brother? Enormous eyes. A wobble of genuine injury in the voice, deployed, I now understand, with the precision of a woman who ran an empire. Of course you are. Fine, but not with anyone outside this mountain. Ever. Don't worry, said Wei Meihe serenely, already reaching. I'd only ever do this to Senior Brother. And she put her hand flat on my sternum and made a noise of deep, scholarly satisfaction, because what she was reading, through skin and muscle, was the supreme bone, humming quietly away, drinking the morning. Which is when Lin Xiaohui came around the corner, humming, in a wonderful mood after a night on my pills, and saw her senior sister with a hand on Senior Brother's chest at dawn. Her mood ended. Her face went scarlet. She crossed the yard at a run. What are you doing? And I opened my mouth to explain, and by the time I had it open, her hand was on my chest as well. I stood in the morning air with a junior sister attached to each side of my sternum and reflected on the sequence of decisions that had brought me here. Both of you, inside, sit. I sat them on chairs and lectured properly. Curiosity is normal at their age. Boundaries exist. One does not put hands on people, Senior Brothers included, however interesting they are. And Wei Meihe from her chair, blinking. But Senior Brother, we're curious about the bone in your chest. That's the supreme bone, isn't it? Silence. It's the bone. They wanted to feel the bone. Not one thing about my personal magnetism was in play at any point in this morning. I have never recovered a shred of that lecture's dignity. But you do not surrender the field mid-sermon, so I hardened my expression and finished it anyway. Curiosity about a physique is still not a license to grab, and the rule stands whatever the motive. Understood, said both of them, nodding, sitting up straight, models of contrition. They fully intended to do it again. I could see that too. They just didn't say so out loud, because I might have started sulking, and neither of them can operate when I sulk. And that was the tableau. Senior Brother lecturing, 2 junior sisters nodding in false penitence when the first shockwave hit the mountain. Supreme pressure from the direction of Zhuantian Peak, then a second from Tianhuo, then Jingyun, then Asking Sword, 4 in one morning. The sect leader had broken through, 30 years at the threshold, resolved in a night. And with him, 3 peak masters. My 12 pills had gone out at dawn, and by breakfast, the Duxian sect had 4 new supremes standing in it. The sect went off like a festival. Nobody could work out where 4 supremes had come from until the story got out, and then the whole mountain range had exactly one topic. The chief refined supreme treasure pills. The chief? He's an alchemist too? What's surprising about that? At this point, if you told me the chief could give birth on his own, I'd believe it. They came to Tianquan Peak to bow to me, 4 brand new supremes in a row, thanking me for a breakthrough they'd waited decades for, and every one of them, standing that close, felt the gap between their fresh supreme realm and whatever I was, and had the good manners not to ask. Then came the best 3 days of my life to date, and I say that as a man who has since been kneeled to by saints. Wei Meihe served her penalty, shoulders and back, an hour a day, expertly. Lin Xiaohui, refusing on principle to concede any territory, matched her move for move. When Wei Meihe took the left shoulder, Xiaohui took the right. When Wei Meihe worked the left leg, Xiaohui took the right. I was worked over in stereo by two competing empires for 3 days running, and I did not lift a finger. Until, somewhere in day 3, lying in a wicker chair with my eyes shut, I noticed a flaw in the arrangement. Hold on. I sent them a fortune in growth pills to make them cultivate. I want junior sisters of unrivaled cultivation. I do not want junior sisters whose profession is shoulder massage. I chased them back to their cabins, and they went, laughing, and got to work. And the bells started and did not stop. Ding! Wei Meihe, Profound Realm second layer. Feedback. Host advances to mid-stage Mystic Venerable. Lin Xiaohui, Golden Core 3rd to 5th layer. Random reward. The Ice Heart Mantra. After that, I stopped reading them individually. They arrived at the pace of a leaking roof. One, then another, then two in a night. A small patient tapping behind my eyes that never quite let me finish a nap. Day after day, layer after layer, two girls with supreme treasure pills in their veins and a rivalry in their chests, climbing in shifts. Wei Meihe went up the Profound Realm to the 9th layer. Lin Xiaohui rode the Myriad Flames method to Golden Core 9, and I went from Mystic Venerable to Earthly Venerate, the 4th realm of Supreme, in a single unbroken run, lying down, eating my own cooking, for a total personal effort of 0. There are cultivators who spend 3 centuries on that stretch of road. The Ice Heart Mantra was the sleeper of the batch, a rare spiritual art. It shields the mind, garrisons the spirit platform, makes your consciousness a fortress. System gifted, so it arrived at perfection like everything else. I ran it once, felt the inside of my own head go cold and clean and quiet, and shelved it as a curiosity with no obvious use. Remember that one. And on the very day I stepped into Earthly Venerate, a crane came down out of the sky over the Du Xian sect carrying an invitation, and the sect leader came to find me with it in his hand and a hard look on his face. The demon-slaying tournament. The 3 Holy Lands had made good on the promise from the secret realm, the whole righteous path, mustering at the demon-slaughtering mountain manor to march on the Valley of Lost Souls and pull the demonic path's oldest root out of the ground. How many should the Du Xian sect send? The sect leader asked. And nephew, before you answer, you're aware they'll all be looking for you. I'll go. I was inside that array. They tried to render me into blood along with everyone else. I'd thought about it since the realm, honestly, and it always came out the same. An earthly venerate who lets that go teaches everyone what he's worth. It would be an insult to my own cultivation to sit this out. Not alone you don't. Take Tianhuo Peak Lord. He's fresh into Supreme and itching to test it. The two of you go together. So it was settled, and I went home to tell my junior sisters I'd be away for a while, and both of them said, at the same moment, in the same breath, "We're coming." Absolutely not. I put on my most immovable face. A demon-slaying war is nothing like a secret realm. Stay on the mountain and cultivate. Senior brother, Lin Xiaohui, chin up, 15 years old, Golden Core 9, standing in the doorway of a cabin she built herself in one night. No resilient flower ever grew in a greenhouse. How are we supposed to grow if we never see wind or rain? She's right. Wei Meihe, beside her, arms folded. We can't stand behind you forever, senior brother. If all we ever do is stand behind you, what exactly makes us different from luggage? And they looked at me and did not blink. I'll be honest about the shape of what I felt, because it's the least flattering thing in this whole account. I wanted to say no. Not for their safety, or not only. I wanted the version where they stay on the green mountain and grow up warm and safe, and I do the bleeding for all 3 of us, forever. But they were right, and I knew the counter-argument by heart, because the cultivation world is littered with its victims. Geniuses are everywhere. Geniuses with a Tao heart are rare. Most prodigies are hothouse flowers, never fought, never bled, never lost, and the first real setback breaks them at the root, and they never grow again. I was not going to grow that. Not out of these two. Fine, I said. You come. Conditions. You carry every pill I gave you, especially the healing ones, on your body, always. You do not fight anything you can't finish. And if anything comes at you that's out of your weight, you do not be brave. You get behind me. Say it back. They said it back. Both of them, solemnly, memorizing every word, entirely failing to find their old father tedious. I'm told I sounded exactly like a man packing his children off to a war and giving them a scarf. I'm coming as well, said the rabbit on the windowsill. Everyone turned around. Don't judge by appearances. Shui Ying sat up straight and put her chin in the air. In a real fight, I'm stronger than these two put together. I can protect them. Also, if all 3 of you leave, I'll be alone on this mountain and it will be boring. She was, on the first count, entirely correct, and only I knew it. A celestial jade rabbit with most of her cultivation broken still has a body that reads like a battle king's. Get in the bag, I said. I will walk, thank you. 2 days later, Tianhuo Peak Lord stood at the mountain gate at dawn, freshly supreme, armed, braced for war, and watched me come down the path with a 13-year-old on my left, a 15-year-old on my right, and a white rabbit riding my shoulder. His face went through a great deal. Nephew, we are going to a war, to exterminate the demonic path. This is not a spring outing. This is not a sightseeing trip, I explained, about the greenhouse and the flowers, about two girls who had refused to be luggage. And the old man's expression changed, and he looked at my two junior sisters with real respect and boomed, "Good, good. At your ages, with that in you, that alone puts you ahead of half the young ones at that muster." He shook his head. "Jiang Shu is a dreadful person, but heaven help me, she has an eye for disciples," and then sighed, privately, and envied my master her apprentices for the third time that week. So we went to war down the mountain road in the early light. One earthly venerate who had never once trained on purpose, two junior sisters climbing like fire up a curtain, one rabbit who intended to protect everyone, and one peak lord who kept looking at the rabbit. Let me put the season where it started. At the beginning of it, I walked into a nothing town in the north of Great Zhou with dust on my shoes and 2 copper coins for the tea to collect a girl my own master had crippled on purpose and wouldn't tell me why. My mountain was bald. My family was 3 people, one of whom was asleep. The strongest thing I had ever killed was a devil king, and the furthest my name had ever traveled was the range of a sect gossip's voice. The coins are in a shrine now, mounted in lacquered boxes with a plaque, and this morning I walked down my own mountain to a war with a sacred acrobat on my hip, a supreme bone in my chest doing my cultivating for me while I sleep, and a rabbit on my shoulder who is going to be a saint. Behind me came a girl who was called cursed by 60 relatives and is now 9 layers into golden core with an immortal treasure purring under her ribs, and a girl of 13 who has lost 4 contests in a row to a man who has never trained on purpose in his life and has therefore concluded, on excellent evidence, that I am something reincarnated. I did not earn 1 item on that list. I want to be honest about that, since I've been honest this far. I was given all of it, by a system that treats me as a hobby, by 2 junior sisters who climb like arson because the alternative is standing behind me, and by a woman 6 peaks away who has never once explained herself. That's the part that keeps me up, on the rare nights anything does. Because I've stopped being able to pretend the pattern is coincidence. She put an immortal treasure inside a stranger's daughter 1 month before sending me to fetch that daughter home. She measured Xiaohui's face against a life I have never been told about. She picked up forging ore from a holy land she visited on my behalf and called it an accident. She tossed me a piece of jade like loose change, with her own hand folded up inside it, in the exact week I would need a hand that could kill a celestial venerable. Every single thing that woman does turns out, later, to have been a step in something, and I still don't know what she's building, or where I am in it, or whether the girl currently sleeping in the 3rd cabin was a rescue or a delivery. So here's where this leaves me, walking east. The demonic path baited a realm to murder my entire generation, and they lost a formation, a sect master, and their ambush finding out what that costs. And now the 3 holy lands are marching on their valley, and every saint on this continent is assuming my attendance. Somewhere out in front of us are the twin saints, who have already fought 3 saints to a standstill in open sky, and I'm bringing 2 children to it because they asked me to in a way I couldn't refuse. That's the external threat, and honestly, external threats have stopped frightening me. The thing I actually carry east is smaller, and it's mine. It's that a saint of the Piao Miao Holy Land fought 2 monsters in the open air for no reason except to shout a question at them. Is Wei Jie in that realm? And that a woman I have never seen leave her bed will erase a continent's worth of people if I come home in a jar. Every mountain I've flattened this season, every saint who bowed, every enemy who folded at the sound of my name, none of it was mine. It was hers, on loan, spending my name as her signature. I'm tired of being the sentence someone else is writing. So I'm going to that valley, with her sword and her pendant and her bone in my chest, and I'm going to find out what's left of me when they've all been used up. And somewhere behind me, 2 girls with pills in their veins are climbing as fast as they can, for exactly the same reason, about exactly the same man.